The rain against my window wasn't just rain, it was an assault. A cold, relentless Pacific drumming that defined Santa Aurelia nights in late October. It had been drumming for 6 hours straight, and I'd been staring at my laptop for just as long. My apartment, if you could call it that, was a studio defined less by furniture and more by paper. Stacks of manila folders colonized the floor. Legal pads, covered in my own frantic blue ink cursive, formed precarious towers on the coffee table. My world had shrunk to the glowing white rectangle of the screen, my eyes burning with the effort of finding a loophole that didn't exist. El Camino Community Legal Center. It sounded noble. What it meant was I was a contract employee, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a dwindling savings account, trying to stop a mass eviction. Landrise Partners v. The tenants of the Marigold Arms, 75 families, mostly working class, mostly immigrants, about to be tossed onto the street by a corporate entity with bottomless pockets. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just the injustice, it was actual hunger. I'd ordered Thai food from the place down on 3rd Street almost an hour ago. Every car that splashed by on the street below made me jump, thinking it was the delivery guy. I was bone tired, the kind of tired that gets into your marrow, that makes your eyelids feel like they're weighted with sand. I rubbed my temple, trying to force the legal jargon from Cal. Siva, Proc, Code Section 1161, back into focus. The buzz of the ancient intercom system was so loud in the silence, it felt like an electric shock. I shot out of my chair, the throw blanket I'd wrapped around my shoulders pooling on the floor. Finally, I breathed. I hit the talk button. Hello? A crackle of static. Delivery. Buzzing you in, I said, pressing the door button hard. I padded to the door in my socks, pulling the deadbolt back. I lived on the 3rd floor of a walk-up. No elevator. It gave me about 30 seconds of buffer. I grabbed a crumpled $5 bill from the chipped bowl by the door. My guilt tip for making someone come out in this weather. I pulled the door open just as the footsteps reached my landing. I didn't look up, already focused on the $5 bill in my hand, my mind still on the tenants. Thanks so much, I mumbled, pushing my hair out of my eyes. I hope they remembered the extra hot sauce. I really asked for... I stopped. My words died in my throat. He wasn't a teenager in a rain-slicked polo shirt. He was a man. Tall. Impossibly tall. His shoulders filling my entire doorframe, blocking the dim, flickering light of the hallway. He was silhouetted, a column of darkness against the yellow paint. He was dripping. The shoulders of a heavy, dark trench coat were soaked, the wool glistening. Before I could process, before I could even react, he moved. He held out the white paper bag with the restaurant's logo, but only as an afterthought. His first movement was to shrug his shoulders, sliding the heavy trench coat off. And I, like some kind of hypnotized valet, reached out and took it from him. The weight was shocking. It was heavy, dense wool, lined with silk that felt cool against my fingertips. It didn't smell like a delivery bag. It smelled like cedar in the cold night air, an expensive, clean scent that had no business being in my apartment. I turned, my arm straining slightly, and hooked the massive coat on my flimsy coat rack. It dwarfed my own thin jacket. When I turned back, he was inside. He hadn't asked. He'd just stepped over the threshold, into my space. He held the bag of food, but he wasn't looking at me. His gaze was moving, slowly, deliberately. It swept over my living room, taking in the chaos. But he wasn't looking at the unfolded laundry or the stack of dishes by the sink. His eyes, dark and sharp, were reading the spines of the binders, the titles on the legal pads. He absorbed the whiteboard on my far wall, the one covered in a messy diagram connecting Landrise Partners to shell corporations with red marker. It wasn't a glance. It was an assessment, an inventory of my life's work. He finally looked at me. His eyes were the color of dark roast coffee, intense and unblinking. His hair was black, slicked back by the storm, and his face was all sharp angles. A strong jaw, a straight nose, He looked less like he belonged in Santa Aurelia and more like he'd been carved from Italian marble. "That'll be," I stammered, my voice sounding weak. I glanced at the receipt taped to the bag. $21.52. "It's paid for," he said. His voice. It was low, smooth, and unhurried, like stones rolling in a slow tide. It didn't fit the room. It didn't fit the rain. He held out the bag. I had to take it as my fingers closed around the paper. His brushed mine. They weren't cold from the storm. They were impossibly warm. He held up a small electronic tablet. I fumbled for the attached stylus and scribbled a line that was supposed to be a Quintero. I was just trying to get this over with. Get him to leave. My nerves were screaming. I handed the tablet back. He tucked it into the pocket of his black suit jacket, a suit under the trench coat. He didn't move, just watched me. "You're on the Urban Integrity Bureau case, aren't you?" The question hit me like a physical blow. The air punched out of my lungs. My blood didn't just go cold, it turned to slush. I stared at him. "What?" "The UIB," he repeated. Not a question this time, a statement. The Urban Integrity Bureau, the official-sounding, utterly fraudulent government agency that had served the eviction notices, the name I'd only typed into confidential memos, the name I'd only whispered to the supervising attorney at El Camino. I don't know what you're talking about." I lied, and the lie was pathetic. "Thin as paper, Ariel Quintero," he said, and my name on his lips sounded like a judgment. "El Camino Legal. You're the one filing the injunction to stop the Marigold Arms eviction. You're arguing the UIB is a fictitious entity." This was not a delivery driver. This was something else. My hand flew to the doorknob to slam it shut, but he was already inside. He stepped forward and I scrambled backward gently, almost casually. He reached behind him and closed the door. The click of the latch echoed in the small room. Then he turned the deadbolt. My deadbolt. Click. Thunk. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice a high-pitched squeak. "Get out of my apartment or I'm calling the police!" He ignored my threat. He walked past me, placing the bag of Thai food on my coffee table. He had to move a stack of depositions to make room, and he did it with an air of unsettling familiarity. Then he undid the buttons on his suit jacket. It was perfectly tailored, fitting his broad shoulders in a way that screamed money, not new money, but the kind of old, heavy money that made this city run. And in that moment, I knew him. Not personally, but I knew the name. My mind flashed to blurry newspaper photos, whispers from the old-timers at the courthouse, the name that was Santa Aurelia's bogeyman, the one parents used to scare their kids, the one business owners muttered when a new investor came to town. Dario Castillo, the head of the Castillo family, the gentleman boss. They called him in the society pages, the one who was supposedly steering the family's logistics empire, the docks, the unions, the shadows into legitimate enterprises, tech, art galleries, high-end restaurants. He was a ghost story used to explain unsolved problems, and he was standing 3 feet from me. His eyes met mine. The outline in my head was right, assessing, and shielded. He was looking at me like I was a variable in an equation he hadn't solved yet. I backed up again, my calves hitting the edge of my cheap sofa. "Get out!" He didn't smile. He didn't move. He simply inclined his head toward my balcony window, the one that faced the street. I wouldn't recommend calling the police just yet. My heart hammered. I glanced at the window, at the rain lashing the glass. Why? There's a dark sedan parked across the street. 2 men, baseball caps, pulled low. They've been there for 20 minutes. A new, sharper fear lanced through me. I instinctively moved toward the window to look. "Don't," he commanded. His voice was soft, but it stopped me dead. "Don't go near the balcony. They're not here for me. They followed you." That's crazy. Were you at the Trader Joe's on Alameda around 6 p.m.? I froze. I had been. I'd made a desperate run for coffee and cheap wine. How? They picked you up in the parking lot. They followed you home. They've been waiting for you to be alone. The room tilted. I had felt weird in the parking lot. I'd felt watched. but I'd chalked it up to paranoia, to the crushing weight of the case. "Who are they?" I whispered. "The people you're fighting. Landris. They don't like losing. And they really don't like lawyers who dig into their shell companies." The adrenaline surged, overriding the fear for a second. This was my home. He was an intruder. They were a threat. It was all a threat. I made my move. I bolted for the door, my fingers fumbling for the deadbolt he had locked. I would scream. I would pull the fire alarm. I would throw myself into the hallway. I didn't even get to touch the metal. Wham! 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 The sound was so violent it vibrated through the floor. It wasn't at my door. It was on the stairs. Heavy, booted feet, running, sprinting up the 3 flights. I froze, my hand hovering an inch from the lock. Dario Castillo moved. It wasn't fast, not like a superhero. It was just inevitable. In 2 long, silent strides, he was at the door, standing between me and the wood. His hand closed over mine, the one still reaching for the lock. He didn't grab it. He enveloped it. His palm was warm and strong, completely stilling my panicked tremor. His other hand moved past my head, with a sound I'd never heard my own lock make, a smooth, oiled snick. He engaged the secondary bolt, the heavy-duty, 1-inch throw I never, ever used. He put 1 finger to his lips. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating from his chest. I could smell the cedar and the rain. And something else, something clean, like soap. The footsteps pounded onto my landing. They stopped. Silence. Right outside my door. 3B. I held my breath. My entire world shrank to the wood grain of the door and the dark, unblinking eyes of the man in front of me. Thud. A heavy weight slammed against the door, a shoulder check, trying to see if it would give. I let out a tiny, choked gasp. Dario's eyes never left mine. They weren't assessing anymore. They were flat, dangerous, protective. It was the most terrifying and strangely calming thing I had ever seen. "I'm here," he whispered. His voice was so low it was just a vibration against my skin. "Because of a debt owed to you, from a friend." "What friend?" I screamed in my head. "I don't have any friends who know you." Thud, louder this time. The frame rattled. Dario didn't even flinch. He just waited. A muffled voice cursed from the hallway. "Nothing. It's bolted. Let's try the fire escape." The heavy footsteps shuffled, lingered for 10 agonizing seconds, an eternity. Then they moved away, clomping back down the stairs, their urgency gone. The silence that flooded the apartment was thick and heavy, like velvet. My knees gave out. I didn't fall. I just slid. My back scraped down the door until I was sitting on the welcome mat, my legs splayed out, my heart doing a painful kick drum rhythm against my ribs. Dario Castillo stepped back, giving me air. He watched the door for another long moment, as if he could see through it. Then he looked down at me. He was perfectly, unnaturally calm. He walked back to the coat rack. He took his own trench coat, the one I had hung up, and then took his suit jacket off. Hanging it neatly beside the coat, he was left in a dark gray, fitted shirt that stretched across his shoulders. He rolled the sleeves up his forearms, revealing strong wrists and a glimpse of dark, intricate ink on his left arm. He returned to the door, standing not over me, but beside me, a sentry, a guardian. "They'll be back," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Yes," he said. His voice back to that smooth, low rumble. "But not tonight. They didn't expect me. They'll have to regroup." "Why?" I finally managed to ask, pushing myself up onto my elbows. "Why are you here? What debt? I don't know any friends of yours." He turned. The only light was the blue-white glow from my laptop, casting sharp shadows across his face. A flicker of something. Was it humor? Regret moved in his eyes. He nodded toward the bag of Thai food, now sitting cold and forgotten on my coffee table. "So," he said, and the corner of his mouth twitched. "I might still be mistaken for a delivery guy." He crouched down, not close enough to threaten, but low enough to meet my gaze. He was no longer a shadow. He was a man, and he was terrifyingly real. "But tonight, Ariel, I brought something else." I just stared at him, my mind blank with fear and confusion. I brought you time. Time. He had brought me time. I was still on the floor, the cold of the cheap entryway tile seeping through my jeans. My breath was shallow, coming in ragged little gasps. Time, I echoed, and my voice was a stranger's, thin and reedy. Time for what? Dario Castillo stood a few feet away, a tower of quiet menace in my cluttered studio. He had rolled his sleeves to his elbows, revealing forearms that were solid muscle and dark, swirling ink. He didn't look like a man who brought time. He looked like a man who took it. For this, he said. He didn't offer a hand. He just waited. He knew I'd get up on my own. I used the doorknob to haul myself to my feet. My legs felt like overcooked noodles. "You're Dario Castillo," I said, stating the obvious. It was the only thing I could control. "I am." "And you're in my apartment." "I am." He inclined his head, a gesture that was almost polite. "The men who left, they won't be gone for long." He walked away from the door, deeper into my life. He stopped at my whiteboard, the epicenter of my obsession. His gaze tracked the red marker lines I'd drawn, connecting Landrice Partners to a web of LLCs I'd spent weeks uncovering. "This is my case," I said, my voice hardening. The lawyer in me was finally waking up, shoving the terror aside. "It's confidential. You shouldn't be here." "Your case," he said, not turning around, "is based on a lie. I know that," I snapped. "The Urban Integrity Bureau is a fraudulent entity. I've checked the Federal Register. It doesn't exist. It's a front." "It is," he agreed, his voice a low murmur. He traced the box I'd drawn around UIB. "Fake letterhead, forged departmental seals. They're using it to pressure landlords into condemnation sales, forcing them to sell their buildings for pennies on the dollar. Landrice buys them up." My blood ran cold again. This wasn't a guess. He was quoting my own confidential brief. How do you know that?" He finally turned. That gaze, the one that felt like it could see through drywall, pinned me. "Because I know who they're selling to. You're missing a layer. Miss Quintero." He picked up a blue dry erase marker from my desk. I wanted to tell him not to touch it. I didn't. He walked to the board and, at the very top, above all my frantic scribbling, he wrote 3 letters. F, C, G. "The shell companies are just middlemen," he said. "The real buyer, the one Landrice is clearing the city for, is the Federal Commerce Guard." I stared at the letters. Federal Commerce Guard. That's a federal agency. That's Department of Commerce. They're legitimate. A humorless smile touched his lips. "Are they?" "Go ahead. Look them up. Not on Google. Try to find their incorporation, their federal mandate, their budget appropriation. You won't." He was right. I'd seen the name on 1 or 2 transfer deeds, but I'd assumed it was just another layer of bureaucracy I hadn't had time to pierce. "It's another ghost," he said, tapping the letters. "A bigger, scarier ghost. Landrice creates the UIB to scare the tenants. Landrice's backers create the FCG to scare Landrice." This was spinning out of my control. This wasn't just a greedy developer. This was a conspiracy, layered and deep. "And the money," I whispered, my mind racing. "It would take millions, tens of millions to fund this." "Hundreds of millions," he corrected. He put the cap back on the marker. "This is Santa Aurelia. Everything flows through 2 places, the city coffers or the docks. Landrice is using both." He walked over to my window. He still kept a respectful distance from the glass, staying in the shadows. "The money starts at City Hall," he said, his voice a low narrative. "A new urban revitalization fund. Infrastructure grants, money earmarked for new sidewalks, parks, lighting money that gets funneled into consulting fees paid to Landrice Partners." He knew. I'd seen the grants, but I couldn't tie them to the evictions. "Landrice takes that city money," he continued, "and pays the Federal Commerce Guard for security and logistical oversight. And just like that, millions in public funds are now in a private, anonymous account. But they have to get it out," I said, thinking aloud. "They have to clean it." "Exactly, He looked back at me. And what businesses are perfect for washing dirty money businesses that run on cash and have no inventory? Bars, nightclubs, and private shipping terminals. My stomach clenched. His territory? The docks. The FCG invests its new funds into a string of bars on the east side, and it pays exorbitant container processing fees at private docks. The money comes out the other side, clean as a whistle, ready to be reinvested in buying up the next city block. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the howl of the wind. He wasn't just a mafioso, he was a businessman, and these people were cutting into his bottom line. Or maybe they were his bottom line. And this was some kind of internal dispute. My fear wasn't gone, but it was being replaced by a cold, hard anger. "You're Dario Castillo," I said again, my voice sharp this time. "The Castillo family? I read the papers. I know what you are. Do you? I can't. I won't." I shook my head, backing up. "I appreciate you stopping those men, but I am an officer of the court. I am trying to win this case legally. I cannot, will not, get into bed with the mafia." The word hung in the air, ugly and sharp. Dario didn't get angry. He didn't deny it. He just watched me, his expression unreadable. "I understand," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "You don't have to trust me. You don't have to like me. But the men who are just at your door, the men who will be back, they don't care about your professional ethics. They already believe I'm a threat to them. By digging as deep as you have, you've become a threat, too. And in their eyes, that makes us partners." He let that sink in. "You're already in my world, Ariel. You just didn't know it." He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket, the one still hanging on my rack. He pulled out a phone. Not a new iPhone, but something sleek, black, and completely unmarked. He tossed it, underhand. I fumbled and caught it. It was heavy, solid. "What's this?" "Proof." He tapped his own phone, and the one in my hand lit up. A photograph. It was grainy, taken from a high angle, like a security camera. It showed the sidewalk in front of my building, and there, under a street lamp, was the dark sedan he'd described. The driver's side door was open. A man in a baseball cap was getting out. Another man stood on the sidewalk. "That's them." I breathed. That's from tonight. That's from my security feed," he said. "From the restaurant across the street, the one my family owns." He swiped on his own phone. A new picture appeared on mine. A close-up, a different angle. A man at a bar, laughing, his face clear. "This is their boss," Dario said. "His name is Marcus Rook. The men he employs call themselves the Rook Syndicate. Ex-military, zero ethics. Landrice keeps them on retainer for problems that lawyers can't solve. Problems like me? They tried the fire escape," I whispered, remembering the muffled voice in the hall. My eyes shot to the window in my kitchen, the one that led to the rusty, useless fire escape. "They're professionals," Dario said. "They won't be back tonight. They saw me. They don't know who I am, but they know I'm not you, and they know I was waiting for them. They'll go back. They'll report, and they'll come back better prepared." He took another object from his pocket, a second phone. "Identical to the one in my hand, a burner?" "Your phone," he said, nodding at my cheap smartphone on the counter. "It's a liability. They're either listening to it already, or they will be by morning. Your laptop, your car, this apartment, they will sweep it all." He slid the new phone across the counter. "This one is clean. It only calls one number. Mine." I stared at the black rectangle. Taking it felt like signing a contract. It felt like crossing a line I could never, ever uncross. "If I take that," I said, my voice shaking, "I'm compromised. My case, it's all based on procedure, on clean hands. If I take help from you, it taints everything. I'll lose. I'll be disbarred." "What case?" he shot back, his voice cutting for the first time. "You're fighting a shadow. You're trying to serve a subpoena to a ghost. You'll file your injunction, and they'll bury you in procedural motions filed by their fake agencies until your funding runs out and your clients are on the street. You're bringing a law book to a gunfight." He stepped closer. "And if they can't beat you with paper, they'll send the Rooks again, and this time, I won't be here." He was right. The injustice of it burned in my throat. He was right. How could I fight a fake system with real laws, those families? He said, his voice low again. The 75 families in the Marigold Arms is your professional pride, your clean record, worth more than their homes. I looked away, squeezing my eyes shut. He'd found the nerve. He'd found the one question I couldn't answer. What's in it for you? I finally asked. You don't do this for free. You want Landrice's territory. Is that it? This is a turf war. He was silent for a long moment. Landrice is sloppy, he said finally. They're greedy. They're bringing a kind of heat to this city I don't need, and they're hurting people. He paused, and I knew he was thinking of the debt he'd mentioned. They're bad for business, for everyone. He held my gaze. So, I have one condition. I waited. I'll keep you alive. I'll give you the information you can't get. I'll be your ghost, but you do the work. He pointed to my whiteboard, to my case files. I want them exposed. I want the truth to come out, by your laws, in your courtroom. I want you to tear them down with that. He tapped my laptop. Not with my guns. A shield, not a weapon. The air shifted. The terror that had been coiled in my stomach for an hour began to unspool. In its place, something new, something cold and sharp. Resolve. I picked up the burner phone. Okay, I said. I walked to the whiteboard, my legs steady now. I was a lawyer again. Okay, if the Rooks are professionals, they're not just watching me, they're watching the building. They know my schedule. They do, he agreed, moving to stand beside me. We were a team. It was the most terrifying thought I'd ever had. So, who else sees them? I started pacing. Who sees the things no one is supposed to see? The people who are invisible. The trash collector, Dario said instantly. He comes at 4 a.m. He sees every car that's parked on this street all night. The postal carrier, I added. Mike. He's been on this route for 20 years. He knows everyone's schedule. He'd know if someone was sitting in a car all day. The night crew at the Landrice main office, Dario said. The janitors. They see what gets shredded, what gets moved after hours. They're moving files, I said, a vague report from a tenant clicking into place. One of the Marigold residents, Mr. Ortiz. He said he saw a moving truck at the Landrice warehouse on Pier 9. Late, like 2 in the morning. He thought it was weird. My people have seen that truck, Dario said, a new intensity in his voice. Orange file boxes, hundreds of them. They're moving them out of the main office and into that warehouse. They're scrubbing their records. We were riffing. We were building a case. It was fast. It was electric. And it was happening with the most dangerous man in Santa Aurelia. Then my eyes landed on it. On my desk, under a stack of mail, was the document that had arrived by courier at 5 p.m. The one that had made my stomach drop hours before Dario Castillo had ever knocked on my door. I picked it up. My hands were perfectly steady. They're not waiting, I said, my voice flat. Dead. I handed the paper to Dario. He took it. His brow furrowed as he read. It's from the UIB. I explained. A notice of emergency structural inspection. They're citing imminent seismic risks at the Marigold Arms. Most of the tenants are elderly. They're giving them 72 hours to temporarily vacate for remediation. Dario looked up from the paper. His calm, which had been so absolute, finally cracked. A muscle in his jaw jumped. It's a paper eviction, he said, his voice a low growl. A sham. They'll use the Rooks to help them evacuate. Once those old people are out, they will never, ever get back in. 72 hours, I repeated, the words tasting like ash. The clock just started. Dario folded the paper. The investigative energy in the room evaporated, replaced by that cold, protective focus he'd had at the door. Where are you sleeping tonight? Ariel. My office, I said immediately. The couch in the conference room, it's got a keycard lock. It's secure. No. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. That's the first place they'll look. They'll check your office. They'll check your car. They'll check your friends' places. He paused. They'll check your family. I flinched. I didn't mean to. It was a tiny involuntary movement, but my eyes darted to the one personal item on my cluttered bookshelf. It was a small, 5x7 silver frame, a picture of me and my mom, smiling, on the steps of our old apartment in the Mission, the one we'd been forced out of when a developer bought the building, the day I decided to become a lawyer. Dario's gaze followed mine. He stared at the photo for a long, heavy moment. He didn't say anything, but I saw his expression shift. He saw it, the why, the real stakes, the vulnerability I'd hidden from everyone, now laid bare. He looked back at me, his eyes darker, his jaw set. "The office isn't safe," he said, "and you are not staying here. Grab your laptop, your charger, the Marigold file. Nothing else." Dario's voice cut through my panic. Sharp and absolute, he was already moving, putting his own jacket and coat back on, transforming from the man standing sentinel in my apartment to a figure of pure, coiled energy. "What about the sedan?" I whispered, my fingers fumbling with the zipper of my backpack. "The men in the hall, they'll be watching the front door," he said, not even looking at me. He was in my tiny kitchen, pushing open the window over the sink. Cold, wet air blasted the room. "They'll be watching the fire escape. We aren't using either." That goes to the air shaft." I stammered. "It goes to the roof of the taqueria next door." He was already one leg out, moving with a fluid grace that was almost animal. He turned, silhouetted against the rainy darkness. "Come on now!" I scrambled onto the counter. He reached back, his hand clamping around my forearm. His grip wasn't gentle, it was steel. He hauled me through the narrow opening as if I weighed nothing. We were in the storm. The rain was horizontal, stinging my face. The world was a mess of wet asphalt and flickering neon. We ran, hunched low, across the slippery tar roof, down a rusted iron ladder I never knew existed, and into a narrow, dark alley that smelled of dumpsters and wet cardboard. A car was waiting, not the sedan. This was a long, black, obscenely expensive vehicle, the kind that whispers power. It was so dark it seemed to drink the meager light from the alley. A man in a simple driver's cap stepped out as we approached and opened the rear door. He didn't say a word. "Get in," Dario ordered. He pushed me in first, sliding in beside me. The door closed with a heavy, soundproof thud, sealing us in an entomb of rich leather and absolute silence. "Jonas," Dario said to the driver. "Standard route. Check for a tail." The car pulled out. Smooth as silk. We drove for 20 minutes. We took streets I'd never seen, winding through the industrial heart of Santa Aurelia, the part of the city that faced the docks. I watched the windows, but all I saw was our own reflection thrown back at us. The car slowed, turned into a loading bay, and stopped. A heavy, corrugated metal door rolled down behind us, the sound echoing in the vast space. We were plunged into pitch blackness. Then, floodlights clicked on overhead. I gasped. We were in a warehouse, but it was beautiful. It was a cavernous space, at least 2 stories high, all old-growth timber beams and exposed brick, but the walls were alive. They were covered, floor to ceiling, in massive canvases, explosions of color, haunting portraits, stark, abstract sculptures made of reclaimed metal. In the center of the space, a half-finished mural of the Santa Aurelia Pier at dusk was stretched across a frame the size of a small house. It smelled of oil paint, turpentine, and old, dry wood. "Where are we?" I whispered, stepping out of the car. "Calypso," Dario said. He'd already shed his trench coat again. "The Calypso Art Collective. My family sponsors local artists. We give them studio space. We store their work. Keep it safe." "A safe house," I murmured. "The safest," he replied. "No one outside my inner circle knows this location exists. The Rooks, Landry's, the FCG, they can't find you here." He led me past a row of sculptures that looked like rusted-out titans, toward a sectioned-off area in the back corner. It was furnished simply a long, worn leather sofa, a heavy oak desk, a small kitchenette, and a door that presumably led to a bathroom. It was Spartan, but clean. He gestured to the small fridge. "Water, soda, there's food. Blankets are in the chest." I didn't move. I just stood there, clutching my backpack to my chest. The adrenaline was draining away. leaving me hollow and shaky. You said, I started, my voice small. At the apartment, you said you were here because of a debt from a friend. Dario, who had been checking a security panel on the wall, went very still. He didn't turn around for a long moment. It wasn't a friend, he said finally, his voice low. It was your mother. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. What? He turned. His face was unshielded, the mask of the boss gone, leaving something more human and more dangerous. Maria Quintero, your mother. I didn't know her personally, but my father did. 15, maybe 16 years ago. She worked as a translator at the county courthouse. He walked closer. One of my father's associates was in trouble. A misunderstanding with a shipping manifest. Your mother was the only one who spoke the same dialect. She translated his testimony. She refused to change the words, refused to bend them. She just told the truth. The charges were dropped. He stopped a few feet from me. My father tried to pay her. He tried to show his gratitude. She refused. She said she was just doing what was right. My father, he never forgot a debt. When your name came up on the Landrise filings, I made the connection. We've been aware of you, peripherally, to ensure the debt was honored, if needed. Aware of me, I said, the words tasting like a violation. You've been watching me, watching over you, he corrected, his voice sharp. There's a difference. When you started digging into the UIB, you stopped being peripheral. You became a target. It was too much. My mother, his father, a debt from 16 years ago. I sank onto the edge of the leather sofa. My mind was reeling. She's why I'm doing this, I heard myself say. The confession was pulled from me, drawn out by the smell of the paint, the weight of his gaze. I looked at my own hands, clenched in my lap. That picture in my apartment, the one you saw. We were evicted, not like this. Not with fake seals and fake agencies. Just old-fashioned greed. A developer bought the building, wanted to flip it to condos. We had 30 days. My throat tightened. My mom, she fought. She went to legal aid. She tried to file papers she didn't understand. She just knew it was wrong. I was 12. I watched her cry in the back of a U-Haul van, and I swore to her, I promised her I'd learn the rules. I'd learn all of them. I'd learn them so well that I could use them to stop this from ever happening to anyone else. I looked up at him, the burn of unshed tears in my eyes. No one gets thrown out of their home because of a piece of paper with a fake seal. Not on my watch. Dario didn't say anything. He just watched me. He didn't offer pity. He offered attention. He was truly listening. He turned away, walking over to a massive, dark canvas, a swirl of angry blues and grays that looked like the storm outside. My father, he said, his voice quiet, distant, owned a restaurant, Castillo's, a small place on the old pier, red and white checkered tablecloths, the best cannoli in the city. My grandfather built it. My father ran it. He touched the canvas, his fingers tracing a line of dark paint. This was before the redevelopment. The FCG, though they called themselves something else back then, wanted the land. They wanted the whole pier. They offered my father pennies on the dollar. He told them where to go. A shadow moved across his face, a memory so dark it was chilling. So they redeveloped him. A fire started in the kitchen. Faulty wiring, the inspector said. A total loss. The insurance claim was denied on a technicality. We lost everything. He turned to face me, and his eyes, they weren't shielded at all. They were black with a cold, ancient anger. I was 19. I was at Stanford, pre-law. My breath caught in my throat. Pre-law. I dropped out, he said, the words flat, hard stones. I came home. My father was a broken man. The family business was the only thing we had left, the docks, so I took it over. The FCG Landrise, whatever they call themselves, they didn't just burn down a restaurant. They took my future. They forced me into this. He looked at me, and a grim understanding passed between us. So, yes, Ariel, this is a turf war, but it's also personal. The silence that filled the warehouse was vast. It was just us. the ghosts of our parents, and the sound of the rain. Softer now. Drumming on the high metal roof, the adrenaline was gone. All that was left was the cold, the dash through the alley, the damp chill of the warehouse. I started to shiver. A small, uncontrollable tremor. Dario saw it. He turned, picked up his trench coat from the chair where he'd tossed it, the one I had hung up in my apartment in what felt like another life. It was dry now, and he walked over to me. I was still perched on the edge of the sofa. He didn't throw it. He didn't hand it to me. He stepped close, behind me, and slowly, deliberately, draped the heavy wool coat over my shoulders. The weight was staggering. It was a shield. It enveloped me. It smelled like him, that clean, impossible scent of cedar in the cold night air, and it was warm. The silk lining held his body heat, transferring it to me. My shivering slowed, then stopped. I pulled the lapels together, sinking into the warmth, into him. He didn't move away. His hands rested on my shoulders, his thumbs brushing the collarbone, just skin on skin. For a fraction of a second, the touch was electric. My skin prickled. The air between us was suddenly thick, humming with a static I couldn't name. I looked up, tilting my head back. He was right there, closer than he'd been at the door. I could see the tiny, faint scar that cut through his left eyebrow. I could see the flecks of gold in his dark coffee eyes. My breathing hitched. His gaze dropped, just for a second, to my mouth. Then it shot back to my eyes, and he held it. He was asking. Without a single word, he was asking permission. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I wasn't scared, not of him, not anymore. I gave the smallest, tiniest nod. His hand came up, leaving my shoulder. It was hesitant. This man who commanded the city's shadows, who had faced down armed men at my door, was hesitant. His fingers, warm and slightly rough from calluses I couldn't imagine, brushed a strand of damp hair from my cheek. The touch was a line of fire, straight down my neck, into my chest. He leaned in, slowly, agonizingly slowly, giving me every second, every millimeter to pull away. I met him halfway. His other hand moved from my shoulder, sliding around my back, pulling me to my feet, and then his lips touched mine. It wasn't a spark, it was a connection. It was warm, and it was firm, and it was sure. It wasn't the rough, demanding kiss of a boss. It was the hesitant, reverent kiss of a man who hadn't allowed himself to feel anything in a long time. It was brief, a press, a recognition, a statement. I see you. You are not alone. He pulled back, but only an inch. His forehead rested against mine. His eyes were closed. I could feel his breath, warm and steady, ghosting across my skin. He pulled me closer, and I went, bonelessly. It wasn't a prelude to anything more, it was just an embrace. His arms were around me, holding me. One hand splayed against the small of my back, the other tangled in my hair, holding my head to his shoulder. I was wrapped in his coat. I was surrounded by his scent. My hands, of their own accord, came up to fist in the front of his shirt. I tucked my head under his chin, and I just breathed. I could hear his heart, a slow, steady, powerful thump-thump beneath my ear. It was the calmest sound in the world. We just stood there, in the middle of an art warehouse, with a 72-hour clock ticking down, held by the most dangerous man in Santa Aurelia. And for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. It was me who broke it. The reality was too much. The combination was too volatile. I pulled back, just enough to look at him. His coat slipped, and I clutched it, pulling it back around me. A small, shaky laugh escaped me. We're still two different worlds. Dario. He looked down at me. The brief, soft moment over. His expression was serious, the sharp intelligence flooding back into his eyes. Two worlds, he conceded, his voice a low rumble. The both hate fakes. That snapped me back. The UIB, the FCG, the Marigold Arms. Okay. I took a deep breath, pulling his coat tighter around me. It was armor now. The plan, Warehouse 9, my tenant saw them moving orange file boxes. Pier 9? He nodded. All business. It's a Landrice leased property. They're using it to store the hard copies, the forged seals, the original notices, the transfer manifests, everything they scrubbed from their main office. The actual stamps, I breathed, my mind racing. The physical tools, if I can get those, if I can show a judge the actual, physical, fraudulent seal, it's not just a civil case, it's criminal, it's fraud, it's racketeering. It's the kill shot. He finished. We have to go. Now. No. He stepped back, putting a crucial foot of air between us. It's too dangerous. The rooks will be guarding it. They're not just goons. Ariel, they're professionals. I have to go. Dario, I insisted, I'm the lawyer. If you go, if you break in and steal the evidence, it's fruit of the poisonous tree. It's inadmissible. My entire case is void. I have to be the one to discover it. I have to secure it. Chain of custody. It's the only way. He stared at me, a new, grudging respect in his eyes. He was a criminal, but he understood leverage. He understood rules. You're right, he said, and I could tell it pained him. But you're not going alone. He laid out the terms, his voice crisp. We go at dawn, 5:30. They'll be changing shifts, less alert. I'll get you inside. My team will create a diversion, a loud one, at the other end of the pier. It will pull the rooks. He held my gaze. I'll go in with you, behind you, as your paralegal. I'll be your shadow. You do this your way. You use your law. His eyes hardened, the coffee brown turning to black. But Ariel, if one of them, if anyone points so much as a finger at you, the law goes out the window, and I do this my way. Understood. Understood, I said, my voice steady. He nodded, a sharp, decisive gesture. He turned, walking back toward the car, toward the front of the warehouse. He stopped at a simple coat hook by the main light switch. He shrugged off his suit jacket and hung it neatly. Then I saw him reach under his gray shirt, to the small of his back, and unclip a holster. It was dark, molded leather. He didn't make a show of it. He simply placed it in the inside pocket of the jacket, hiding it from view. He was disarming, in his own safe house. For me, I watched him. He wasn't the delivery guy. He wasn't the ghost story. He was Dario, and he was in this with me. Get some sleep, Ariel, he said, his back to me. Tomorrow we go to war. I didn't sleep. Sleep was an impossible luxury, a continent I couldn't reach. I spent the night on the leather sofa in Dario's art warehouse, his heavy trench coat wrapped around me like a suit of armor, my mind replaying the pressure of his lips and the cold, hard text of the 72-hour eviction notice. They were linked, somehow. The moment of impossible softness and the brittle edge of the threat. When the burner phone vibrated at 4:30:03, I was already on my feet. Dario was waiting by the door. He hadn't slept either. He wore a simple black long-sleeved shirt and dark pants. He was a shadow, a column of coiled energy. He handed me a cup of coffee in a plain paper cup. It was scalding hot and black. Jonas is waiting, he said. No small talk. We drove in silence. The black sedan cut through the pre-dawn gloom, a ghost in the sleeping city. We left the commercial districts, the quiet residential streets, and plunged into the industrial heart of Santa Aurelia. We arrived at Pier Halcyon at 5:18 a.m. This wasn't the tourist pier. This was a place of work and rust. The rain had softened to a cold, misty drizzle. The air was thick with the smell of the low tide, diesel fuel, and damp metal. Everything was bathed in the sick, sulfur-yellow glow of high-pressure sodium lights, which made the fog look like a toxic cloud. Jonas parked a block away, in the shadow of a silent crane. You'll see 2 guards, Dario murmured, his voice low, vibrating through the car. Rook Syndicate. They're private, not union. They don't report to the Port Authority. They report to Landrice. And the diversion, I whispered, my heart starting its heavy, painful thud. Pier 7, 3 blocks south. A malfunctioning container lift is scheduled to drop a 40-foot container of scrap metal at precisely 5:30. It will be loud. You'll have 3 minutes. Maybe 4. He looked at me, his eyes unreadable in the dark. Stay behind me. Do exactly as I say. Do not hesitate. Understood. We moved. We didn't run. We walked. Fluid and fast, two shadows merging with the greater darkness between the yellow pools of light. Dario moved with a terrifying economy of motion, his feet making zero sound on the wet pavement. I felt clumsy, loud, my backpack strap squeaking. He held up a fist. We stopped. Ahead, the main gate of Warehouse 9, a chain-link fence topped with razor wire, a small guard shack. Inside, two men silhouetted, drinking from mugs. Dario pointed to his ear. I listened. Far off, the groan of heavy machinery. He held up 3 fingers. 2, 1. Crab-boom! A sound so profound it shook the ground under our feet, a seismic, grinding roar of metal on metal, echoing across the water. Inside the guard shack, the 2 men jumped. One of them grabbed a radio, shouting into it. They both burst from the shack and started sprinting toward the sound, toward Pier 7. Now, Dario breathed. He didn't go for the main gate. He moved left, along the warehouse's corrugated metal wall, to a small, unassuming side door marked Maintenance. He held up his hand again, stopping me. He pointed to the keypad and the small red light above it. Then he pulled a thin, white plastic card from his pocket. "This is Frank's," he whispered. "The night shift foreman. He's disgruntled. He left this for us." He handed me the card. "You do this? You're the lawyer." My hand was shaking. The card was just a simple key card, but it was everything. It was the line. I was breaking and entering. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I pulled a folded document from my jacket pocket. Dario's gaze flickered to it. "City Ordinance 14 Beta," I said, reciting the obscure code I'd spent all night finding. "It allows for emergency civil inspection of a private commercial property if it is suspected of housing materials that pose an imminent public hazard, like, say, fraudulent documents used to execute illegal evictions." Dario's lips twitched. "That's creative. Your lawyer, Rhea, drafted a formal notice," I said. "It's time-stamped 2 hours ago. I'm not breaking in. Dario, I'm inspecting." I stepped up to the keypad, and Frank, the disgruntled foreman, he's not a co-conspirator. He's a civic-minded whistleblower who accidentally left his card in the cafeteria, where I found it while getting a statement. Dario's quiet laugh was a puff of warm air in the cold. "You're going to be a terrifying lawyer." "I already am." I swiped the card. The light above the door flashed green with a dull thunk. Dario's hand was on the latch. He pushed it open. A crack. He listened. Nothing. He slipped inside. I followed, right on his heels. The inside of the warehouse was a cathedral of shadows. It smelled exactly as I'd imagined damp wood. Cold steel, drying paint, and the papery, dusty scent of old files. The place was a maze of towering metal shelves, but it wasn't quiet. There was a low, electronic hum. Dario pointed up. A single, thin red line of light painted the floor 20 feet in front of us. A laser grid, simple, but effective. "Motion sensors on the main aisles," Dario whispered, his breath by my ear. "We stay low, stay in the shelves." He moved like a panther, ducking under the first shelf, into the narrow aisle. I followed, my backpack snagging on a metal upright. I froze. He glanced back, patient, and untangled me. We moved for what felt like an eternity. A slow, crouching marathon through a canyon of metal and cardboard. "There," he breathed. He pointed. At the far end of the warehouse, in a cordoned-off section, were the orange file boxes, stacks and stacks of them. And in the middle of them, like a cursed altar, sat a large, bright orange industrial safe. "They're not even trying to hide it," I whispered. "Hubris," he replied. "They think no one would ever dare." We reached the clearing. He checked the corners. No cameras, no sensors, just the safe. "This is my part," he said. He knelt in front of the electronic keypad. He didn't pull out any movie gadgets. He just looked at it. His hands moved over the panel, testing the keys, feeling for wear. He entered a 6-digit code. "Beep, beep, beep. Access denied," he cursed, low and soft. "What's the code?" I asked, my heart sinking. Standard 123123 or their address. It's not. Try the UIB, I said. The letters. What? On the keypad, UIB 842. He looked at me. That's absurdly simple. So is a fake government agency. He typed 842-842. A loud, satisfying clack-shees echoed in the warehouse. The heavy handle on the safe popped. Dario looked at me, a flicker of genuine astonishment in his eyes. He pulled the heavy door open. My breath caught. It was the mother lode, not just files. There were stacks of pre-printed eviction notices, binders labeled FCG transfer. But the real prize was on the top shelf. A set of heavy, old-fashioned rubber stamps. I picked one up. My hand was shaking again, but this time with triumph. The rubber was carved deep. Urban Integrity Bureau, Office of the Inspector General. We got it. I breathed. Dario, we got it. Look, he said. He was holding a small black USB flash drive. It was labeled, in neat silver marker, Marigold, FCG, Final. The plan, I said. The macro. The entire transfer schedule for all 47 buildings. I took it from him. It was warm from being in the safe. It was the whole case. It was 75 families. It was my mother's ghost. I zipped it into the most secure pocket of my backpack. Thud! 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 Heavy boots on the metal catwalk above us. My blood turned to ice. They're back, I whispered, my voice failing. The diversion, it didn't hold them. It wasn't for them, Dario growled, pushing me back, behind the open safe door. It was for the gate guards. These guys were always inside. They were waiting. A beam of a high-powered flashlight cut through the darkness, sweeping the aisle, landing on the open safe. We got company, a voice roared from above. Down here, lock it down. 2 men dropped from the catwalk, landing 10 feet away with practiced, silent rolls. They were dressed in black tactical gear, the Rook Syndicate. Dario didn't hesitate. He put himself between me and them. His body was a wall. Get the stamps in the bag, he hissed. Now. As I scrambled to stuff the heavy rubber stamps into my backpack, he moved. He didn't charge. He waited. The first man came at him, a heavy baton in his hand. Dario sidestepped the wild swing, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted, a sickening pop and a scream. Dario used the man's own momentum to spin him, driving him face first into a metal shelf, a single plastic zip tie appearing from Dario's sleeve as if by magic, and the man's hands were secured behind his back. It took less than 3 seconds. The second man was more cautious. He had a stun gun. He lunged. Dario went low, under the electrical arc. He drove his shoulder into the man's stomach, lifting him off his feet. The man's head hit the concrete floor with a hollow, awful thwack. He didn't move. We have to go, Dario said, grabbing my arm. More coming, a voice shouted from the main entrance. We were cut off. Dario shoved me back into the aisle we'd come from. Go, don't stop. We ran, crouching, back into the maze. He's in aisle 4, a voice yelled, getting closer. We burst out of the shelving near the side door. 2 more Rooks stood between us and the exit. Dario. I yelled. He pushed me behind him again, bracing. He was unarmed. They were not. They had batons, and they were advancing. My eyes darted around. I wasn't a fighter. I was a lawyer. I saw rules. I saw tools. On the wall, 10 feet to my left, a large red fire extinguisher. Hey, I screamed. The 2 men turned. It was just the distraction Dario needed. He took a step, but I was already moving. I grabbed the heavy cylinder, ripped the pin out, and aimed the nozzle. Cover your face, I yelled to Dario. I squeezed the handle. A massive, choking white cloud of CO2 and chemicals exploded into the warehouse. It blasted the 2 Rooks, knocking them off balance, blinding them, filling the air with a deafening hiss. Go, 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 Dario yelled. He grabbed my hand and we plunged through the cloud. We burst out the other side, gasping, and slammed through the maintenance door into the cold, drizzling dawn. We sprinted. We didn't look back. The sounds of shouting and coughing faded behind us. We piled into the back of the black sedan. Jonas already had the engine running. Go, Dario yelled. The car fishtailed on the wet pavement, tires screaming, and we were gone. My lungs burned from the chemical cloud. My heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. I was covered in dust, sweat, and fire extinguisher foam, but I was clutching my backpack. "We did it," I panted, slumping against the leather seat. "We got it all. The stamps, the drive. We did," Dario said. He was breathing heavily, his eyes scanning the road behind us. The high was electric. We were a team. Then, his body went rigid. He was looking at his side mirror. "What?" I asked, sitting up. "Are they following us?" "No," he said, his voice flat, all the triumph gone. "Jonas, pull over. Now." "Boss, pull over." Jonas slammed on the brakes, pulling the car hard against the curb of a deserted street. "What is it?" I demanded. Dario's face was a mask of cold fury. He was staring at the maintenance door we had just escaped from. It was a block away, but we could see it clearly. Another man had emerged. He wasn't a rook. He was in a suit. He was shouting at the rooks who were stumbling out, coughing. He was furious. And as he gesticulated, he pointed at a black van that was pulling up. The man in the suit shouted something we couldn't hear. Then, one of the rooks, the one who seemed to be the leader, turned to the others and roared, his voice carrying in the morning air. "Change of plans, forget them. Get the reserve drives. Take the shipment to the Blue Bayou tonight. Burn it all, go." My blood, which had been singing with victory, turned to ice. Oh, no," I whispered. "What?" Dario said, turning to me. "What is it?" "The Blue Bayou," I said, my voice hollow. "I know that place. It's not a bar. It's not a club. It's a sealed-off wetlands area, out past the county line. The EPA shut it down years ago for illegal dumping. It's a dead zone, a swamp." I looked at him, the horror dawning. "Dario," I said, "they're not moving the evidence. They're going to destroy it." Dario's jaw was granite. He looked at the flash drive I had in my hand and then at the warehouse, where the rest of the data was. He locked eyes with me. The shared victory was gone, replaced by a new, frantic urgency. "We just switched," he said. "No," his voice a low growl. "From a heist to a race. Jonas, change of plans. Don't go to Calypso. Go south. Get us on the 101 now." Dario's voice was a blade in the pre-dawn silence. The heist was over. The race had just begun. Jonas, without a word, wrenched the wheel. The heavy sedan's tires bit the wet pavement, and we were merging onto the freeway. Just another car in the sparse, early morning commute. My heart was a cold stone in my chest. The USB drive in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. Dario, the marigold arms. That notice, the 72 hours, it's still ticking. They'll be sending the rooks. We have to warn them. He nodded, his eyes sweeping the rearview mirrors. "The burner phone is compromised. They sent you that text. They're listening. But your personal phone, they think it's off. They think you're still in your apartment. Use it. Once. Be fast." My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I pulled out my old smartphone. Its screen cracked, and my fingers flew across the glass. I didn't text. I video called. She needed to see my face. The screen lit up, a grainy image of a woman, older, with kind, tired eyes and hair pulled back in a tight bun. Mrs. Nayeli Cruz, the building manager, the heart of the Marigold Arms. "Ariel, mija, what is it? It's 5 a.m. "Nayeli, listen to me," I said, my voice low and urgent. "You cannot, under any circumstances, let anyone into that building. Do you hear me?" "What about the inspectors? The notice seismic risk they said we have to? They are not inspectors. Nayeli, it's a lie. The UIB is fake. They are criminals. They are trying to get you out so you can never come back." The sedan hit a bump, and the phone rattled in my hand. "Lock the main doors. Put chains on them. Tell everyone, do not open your door for anyone. Not the UIB, not the police, not the fire department. Not unless you hear from me first. Do you understand?" Her face went pale. She saw the desperation in my eyes. She saw the dark interior of the car. Yes, I understand. But Ariel, where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm working on it. Just hold on. I'm fighting. Don't open the door." I hung up before she could ask anything else. My thumb was hovering over the power off button when the other phone vibrated, the burner, the one Dario gave me. A text message from an unknown number. My blood froze. I opened it. "We know you have the drive, and we know you warned the old woman. That was a mistake. Don't involve the tenants. It only makes them targets. Come to the Blue Bayou. Alone. I showed the screen to Dario. His face was granite. He took the phone from my hand, his expression darkening with every word he read. No, he said, his voice a low growl. He was staring at the text, but I knew he was seeing something else. This isn't just Landress. This isn't just the Rooks. He looked at me, his eyes black. All traces of the man from the warehouse gone, replaced by the boss. They knew we were at Warehouse 9, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. They knew which warehouse. They knew how we'd get in. Frank, the foreman, the diversion. It was a trap. Ariel. They let us get that drive. They wanted us to have it. Why? To get us out in the open, to flush us out. And he looked at the text again. The first message, the one that sent you here, they knew about Calypso. The implication hit me like a physical blow. Your safe house. My safe house, he repeated, and the word was ice. My inner circle. Someone in my organization is working with them. Someone is leaking. My driver, my security, my lawyer. One of my own people, they're running me. He didn't have time to finish. A sound, high and angry, like a swarm of hornets, cut through the hum of the engine. Dario's eyes snapped to the side mirror. Jonas, he said, his voice suddenly calm. Exit at 7th Street, hard right. I looked back. 2 of them. Motorcycles, black. Aerodynamic. No plates. The riders were in matching black gear, their helmets dark, reflective visors. They were weaving through the light traffic, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Jonas wrenched the wheel. The car lurched, tires screaming as we careened off the freeway. They're staying with us, Jonas said, his voice tight. Pull over, now, Dario commanded. Boss, do it. Jonas slammed on the brakes, pulling the car into a bus stop. Get out, Jonas, Dario said. Take a cab. Go dark. I'll call you. Dario, I can't leave. That's an order. Jonas was out. Dario was vaulting over the center console, pushing his way into the driver's seat. Before I had even processed what was happening, he had the car in gear and we were peeling out, throwing a wave of dirty water onto the sidewalk. Buckle up, he said. He wasn't driving like Jonas. Jonas was a professional driver. Dario was a predator. He didn't just speed, he flowed. He saw gaps in traffic that didn't exist. The 2 bikes were on us, one on the tail, one on my side. The one on my side edged closer. The rider's faceless black helmet turned, looking right at me. Dario, hold on. He didn't swerve away. He swerved toward it. The car's heavy steel frame lunged at the bike. The rider, panicked, fell back. The bike behind us sped up, trying to get parallel. Brake left, swerve right, Dario muttered to himself. He slammed the brakes. A controlled, violent pump that shifted the car's entire weight onto the front wheels. Then he yanked the wheel to the right. The sedan pivoted. A 4,000-pound battering ram, cutting across 2 lanes of traffic. A city bus horn blared, a sound from hell. The 2 bikes were forced to scatter. Blocked by the massive bus, Dario floored it. We shot down a side street, then another, then a hard left into an alley. During the turn, I was slammed against the passenger door. The USB. My hand flew to my pocket. If we crashed, if they caught us, I couldn't have it on me. My fingers frantically felt along the seat. The leather upholstery was old, worn. I found a seam, right where the seat cushion met the backrest. It was deep. What are you doing? He snapped. Hiding it, I grunted, shoving the small, precious drive deep into the guts of the car. I pushed it until my fingernails scraped. It was gone, swallowed by the seat. We emerged onto a different boulevard. He'd lost them, for now. He turned on the radio. Low. A classical station. The frantic strings of a violin filled the car. We drove in silence for 10 minutes, heading out of the city, toward the county line. The music stopped. Static. Then, a voice. It was smooth, unaccented, like an old-fashioned radio announcer. Attention, per Regulation 14-9. All secondary assets are to be consolidated. Per Statute 305. All accounts are to be finalized. Egress protocols are in effect. Acknowledge. It repeated. What is that? I whispered. A code, Dario said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. It's for the cleanup crew, the rooks. Consolidate secondary assets. That's the rest of the files from the warehouse. Finalize accounts. That's us. They're not just destroying the evidence. They're clearing the board. We were on a long, dark stretch of highway now. The city was a smear of light in the rearview mirror. I looked at the man beside me, the man who had kissed me, the man who was a criminal, the man who was now being hunted by his own people. "This is more than bad for business, Dario," I said, my voice barely audible over the road noise. "They knew about Calypso. They're in your house. You're risking your entire family, your reputation, the Castillo name, for me, for this." He kept his eyes on the road. The digital clock on the dash read 6:15 a.m. "I might lose my reputation," he said, his voice flat. "I might lose the docks. But you're going to save 47 buildings. You're going to burn them down with your law." He finally glanced at me, his eyes reflecting the dashboard lights. "It's a trade I'm willing to make." The storm had broken. The rain finally stopped. As the sun began to hint at the horizon, the wet highway turned into a black mirror, reflecting the red and white lights of the sparse traffic. It was beautiful and desolate. My hand was on the center console, shaking. His hand, the one not on the steering wheel, covered mine. It wasn't a caress. It wasn't romantic. It was an anchor. A brief, warm, crushing pressure that said, "I am here. We are in this." Just for a second, then it was gone. He turned off the highway, onto an unmarked access road. The pavement gave way to gravel, then to mud. The car's headlights cut through a thick ground fog. The air smelled of wet rot and decay. We came to a stop. Ahead of us, a tall, imposing fence of corrugated tin, topped with razor wire. It was the color of rust. A gap, just wide enough for a truck, was the only way in. This was the Blue Bayou. Dario killed the headlights. In the gloom, I could see it, a vast, marshy swamp. And in the center, parked on a concrete slab, was a large, truck-mounted industrial incinerator. A sickly heat shimmer rose from its short smokestack. Several men stood waiting, silhouetted against the glow, the rooks and cans, dozens of red gasoline cans. "They're not just waiting," Dario said, his hand moving to the door handle. "They're prepared. Dario, they said alone. They want me. This is a trade." "It's an execution," he replied. A voice cut through the fog. No bullhorn. It just carried, "Miss Quintero, I'm glad you could make it." The man from the warehouse, the one in the suit, Marcus Rook, he stepped forward. He wasn't armed. He was just smiling. "We have a simple exchange. The drive you have, for the safety of the Marigold Arms, a permanent exemption. You have my word." "His word is worthless," Dario murmured, his hand tightening on the handle. "I know." I whispered back. I took a deep breath. I put my hand on the door. "But I have to play the hand." I opened my door and stepped out. I left my backpack, my purse, everything. I held my hands up, empty, away from my body. "I'm here," I called out, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm unarmed." I started walking toward them, my shoes sinking into the mud. My back was straight. Dario's door opened. He didn't follow me. He didn't stay with the car. He moved to the right, a classic flanking maneuver, melting into the shadows just outside the main pool of light. He was a shadow. His body angled, ready to move, drawing their focus, splitting their attention. I stopped about 30 feet from Rook. The air was thick with the stink of gasoline. "The drive, Miss Quintero," Rook said, his smile tightening. "Put it on the ground and kick it over." "It's not on me," I said, my voice clear. Rook's smile faltered. "Don't play games with me, girl." The text, "Wee woo wee woo wee woo." The sound was so loud it was painful. It wasn't police. It was a high-low wail, an official, bureaucratic siren. 2 white utility trucks, emblazoned with the official seal of the Santa Aurelia Port Authority, burst through the gap in the fence. Their high beams and roof-mounted floodlights flashed on, turning the foggy swamp into a blazing, sterile daylight. "Port inspectors," a voice boomed over a loudspeaker. "This is a protected EPA site. Drop your materials, you are in violation of federal statute." "My sister, Maya, my God, Maya!" Rook screamed, a sound of pure, undiluted rage. It's a setup. Forget the deal. Burn it all. The rooks scattered. They grabbed the red cans, throwing gasoline on the stacks of orange file boxes. But one of them, the one standing next to the huge incinerator, didn't run. He slammed his fist into a keypad on the side of the machine. A high-pitched, digital beep, beep, beep began to echo across the swamp. A red digital display, huge, on the side of the incinerator, lit up. It read 0060. "They're not just burning it," Dario roared, his voice cutting through the chaos. He was sprinting, not at the rooks, but at me. "They're blowing it." He tackled me, his arms a steel band around my waist, just as the rooks opened fire, not at us, but at the inspector's lights, plunging the world back into a chaos of strobing lights and shadows. The ground was hard, cold and wet. Dario rolled off me, his weight a sudden, shocking absence. "Stay down," he roared. The world was a strobe light of chaos. The Port Authority, floodlights, the flash of gunfire, and the steady, insistent beep, beep, beep of the timer. The red numbers on the incinerator were a countdown to Armageddon 0054, 0053. The rooks weren't aiming at us. They were firing at the lights, plunging the swamp back into a confusing gloom, lit only by the flames now licking at the gasoline-soaked boxes. "Maya!" I screamed, spotting my sister crouched behind the door of her utility truck. "Call the fire department, tell them active explosives now." I saw her nod, her face pale, her phone already to her ear. Dario was moving, not toward me. He was sprinting toward the incinerator, a dark shape against the growing fire. Dario, no. He was 5 feet from the bomb. I couldn't just watch. My eyes scanned the truck. A fire extinguisher, mounted right on the side. I scrambled up, mud sucking at my sneakers, and ripped the heavy red cylinder from its bracket. I turned, ready to follow him, to give him cover. I never made it. A hand, like a steel clamp, seized the back of my jacket, a rook, one of the men who had been dousing the boxes. He'd circled around in the dark. He was huge. He yanked me backward, spinning me around to use me as a shield. "Ariel?" Dario's voice. I looked. He had stopped. He was 10 feet from the bomb, 10 feet from saving us all. And he had stopped. He turned. He was coming back. For me. "No," I shrieked. "Dario, the timer, go." "Stay back. Castillo," the rook growled, his arm locking around my throat, cutting off my air. "Or she goes first." I wasn't a shield. I wasn't a damsel. I was a community lawyer. I took the free self-defense classes at the El Camino Rec Center every Thursday night. I dropped my center of gravity, sinking my entire weight. It caught him off guard. I slammed my heel hard onto his instep. He roared, his grip on my neck loosening for a fraction of a second. It was all I needed. I twisted, throwing my body sideways, bringing my arm up and around his neck, locking my elbow under his chin. A chokehold. It was sloppy. I was slipping in the mud, but it was on. He was gagging, his free hand clawing at my arm, but I held on, my entire body screaming with the effort. Dario arrived. He wasn't a brawler, and he was a surgeon. He didn't punch. He moved past the rook's flailing, grabbed the man's outstretched arm, the one he'd been holding me with, and spun. He dropped his weight, a clean, devastatingly simple joint lock. A wet, sickening pop echoed in the swamp. The rook screamed, a high, thin sound of pure agony. His body went limp, his arm at an angle that wasn't natural, and he collapsed in the mud. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was frantic now, a high-pitched squeal. I looked up. The red numbers. 0015, 0014. "The fire!" I screamed, pointing with the extinguisher I hadn't even realized I was still holding. The gasoline had found a spark from the gunfire. A solid wall of orange flame erupted between us and the incinerator. "The panel!" Dario roared. He didn't hesitate. He sprinted at the wall of fire. He used the downed, screaming rook as a stepping stone, a single, powerful push that launched him through the weakest part of the flames. He was a silhouette, a dark shape against the inferno. 0012, 0011, he was at the control panel, his gloved hands ripping at the metal cover. It tore free. Beep, 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 000500004. He found it, a thick bundle of blue and yellow wires. He didn't have time to be delicate. He braced his feet in the mud and pulled 0002 0001. Silence. The beeping stopped. The red numbers went dark. For 1/2 of 1 second, the world was silent, save for the crackle of the fire and the distant approaching sirens. Fwoom! It wasn't an explosion. It was a misfire. A concussive blast. The incinerator's pressure system denied its intended detonation, released in one single, massive, invisible wave of superheated air and smoke. It hit us like a solid object. It picked me up off my feet. Dario was already in motion. He met me mid-air, his arms a steel band tackling me, wrapping his body around mine, his back to the blast. We hit the ground, hard, rolling through the mud, his body a solid, living shield over me. His arms locked around my head. The air was punched from my lungs. I was covered in soot, mud, and the stink of gasoline. I was alive. I was underneath him. The world was a ringing in my ears, the red and blue wash of approaching emergency lights, and the ragged sound of our breathing. He pushed up, just an inch, his weight on his elbows. His face was inches from mine. It was smeared with soot, his hair matted with mud. His eyes were black, bottomless and utterly focused, checking me for broken bones, for fear. "You okay?" His voice was a low, rough rasp. I couldn't find words. My heart was a frantic bird against my ribs, beating in time with his. I just looked at him. This man, this impossible, terrifying, beautiful man. My hand came up, my fingers trembling, caked in mud. I touched his cheek, his jaw. I just nodded. It was all the permission I was giving. It was all the answer he needed. He lowered his head. His lips were chapped, tasting of smoke, mud, and adrenaline. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It wasn't the hesitant kiss from the warehouse. This was a claiming. This was "I thought you were gone." This was "we are alive." It was deep, and it was desperate. His hand slid from my shoulder to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my wet hair, holding me to him. My own hands, which had been fisted in the mud, came up to grip the front of his shirt, bunching the fabric, pulling him closer. Our chests were pressed together, hearts hammering against each other in a frantic, shared rhythm. It was all heat and grit and desperation, a spark of life in a field of death. It was over as fast as it began. He pulled back, just an inch, his forehead resting against mine. We were breathing the same air, the wail of sirens, close now. Real sirens, cut through the moment. He rolled off me and was on his feet in one fluid motion, pulling me up with him. "They're coming!" The fire trucks, followed by 2 Santa Aurelia PD cruisers, skidded to a stop, flooding the swamp with light. The rooks were gone. A few stray pops of gunfire echoed from the levee. They're covering fire. "Ariel," Maya ran to me, her face a mask of terror. "My God, are you—" She hugged me, hard, her whole body shaking. I thought, "I'm okay." I gasped, hugging her back. "I'm okay." Dario wasn't looking at us. He was walking, calm and deliberate, back to the sedan we had abandoned. He opened the rear door, reached deep into the seam of the seat, and his hand emerged, holding the small, black USB drive. He walked over to us, ignoring the shouts of the police officers. He looked at Maya, his gaze sharp. "You're the reporter." "Maya Quintero," she said, her voice wary but strong. He held out the drive. "They'll search her," he said, nodding at me. "They'll search the car. They'll search the scene. They won't search the press." He nodded at the heavy professional camera hanging around her neck. "Put this in your camera bag, in a lens case, a place no one would think to look. It's the copy from the warehouse. It's the real evidence." Maya's eyes flicked from him to me. I nodded, just once. "Do it, Maya. It's the only way." She took it. Without a word, she unzipped a padded lens pouch, dropped the tiny drive inside, and zipped it shut. It vanished. "We can't be here," Dario said, his voice low. "My car is burned. Jonas is compromised. We're exposed. We move. Now." Maya nodded, all business. My truck, the PA one. They think I'm part of the inspection team. In the chaos of shouting firemen and cops setting up a perimeter, the three of us, the mob boss, the reporter, and the lawyer slipped away. Just 3 more shadows in a burning swamp. The art warehouse was eerily silent when we returned. Dario slammed the heavy metal door, and the sound of the deadbolt locking was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. He went straight to a security panel I'd never seen, hidden behind a massive abstract canvas. He was radiating a cold, lethal fury. Lock it down, he snapped into a small speaker. Full security protocol, no one in or out, change all codes, all of them, and get me a direct line to Bishop, now. He turned to us, pacing. The boss was back. Rhea, Jonas, Bishop, Aldo, it's one of them. Who? Maya asked, her reporter's notebook suddenly in her hand. Rhea is my legal counsel, Dario said, biting off each word. She knew I was looking for a legal loophole for you, like the ordinance. Jonas is my driver. He knew every route, every safe house. Bishop is my head of security. He knew the warehouse defenses. And Aldo is my port manager. He knew about Frank the foreman and the shift changes at Pier 9. He stopped pacing and his eyes locked on mine. They played me. They used my own people, my own assets, to flush you out. The Blue Bayou. It was an execution. Ariel, not a trade. They wanted the drive, I said, my mind racing, the pieces clicking into place. They let us get that one drive from the safe because they knew they had a mole. They knew they could track us. They wanted to get me. And what they thought was the only copy of the evidence, in one place, and destroy all the originals, Dario finished, gesturing to his now muddy clothes. But they don't have the drive, Maya said, her hand unconsciously tapping her camera bag. They think it was destroyed in the fire, or they think you still have it. As if summoned, the burner phone on the table vibrated. We all stared at it, a black rectangle of menace. I looked at Dario. He nodded. I picked it up. A new text. Bad move. Lawyer, we're coming for the girl. And the drive. They didn't know. They thought I still had it. I looked at Dario. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. They're panicking. They think I have the only copy. They'll come for me, and they'll come for the marigold arms. I won't let them get near you. He growled. You don't have to. I said. I stood up. I walked to the sofa and picked up his heavy, muddy trench coat, the one from last night, an eternity ago. I put it on. It was my armor. They're sloppy. They're panicking, and the mole just tipped their hand. We're not running. We're not hiding. I looked at him, at my sister, at the camera bag on the table. I'm taking this public. I'm going to court, right now. I'm filing an emergency injunction to stop those evictions, before that mole can burn me or my clients. I barely remember the drive back to the Calypso warehouse. My entire body was a single, raw nerve, thrumming with adrenaline, fear, and the lingering, smoky taste of Dario's kiss. We didn't talk. We didn't have to. We were a single unit of purpose. We had maybe 30 minutes. You're not going to court in mud, was the first thing Maya said when we burst through the door. I don't have a choice. I panted. Yes, you do. She pointed to a metal locker. I keep a go bag here. For when I'm on a long stakeout, there's a black blazer, a shell top, and pants in there. They'll be too big. They'll look professional. Go. While I changed, my hands shaking so bad I could barely work the zipper. Dario and Maya were at the oak desk. I heard the whir of a high-speed hard drive. One copy, Dario said, his voice low. Maya, you keep the original. It stays in that camera bag. It is your camera. It doesn't leave your body. Ariel, you take the copy. It's your weapon. They'll be waiting for us. Dario, Maya said, her voice tight. At the courthouse, they know she's going. The mole. Bishop. Dario cut in. The name was a shard of ice. It has to be him. The text at the Blue Bayou. We're coming for the girl. That's his signature. Tactical, impersonal. Then you can't go, I said, walking out, tugging the sleeves of Maya's too large blazer. If Bishop is there, he'll be looking for you. It's a trap. He'll be looking for the boss, Dario said. He was pulling his own muddy shirt off, revealing the intricate ink that covered his arms and shoulders. He grabbed a clean, dark t-shirt from a bag I'd never seen. "He won't be looking for your paralegal." He slicked his wet hair back. The transformation was instant. The brawler from the swamp was gone. In his place was a man who looked like he carried briefcases and held doors. It was the most terrifying disguise I'd ever seen. The Santa Aurelia County Civil Courthouse was a temple of beige marble. It was built to feel intimidating, permanent. It was built to crush people like the tenants of the Marigold Arms. But today, I wasn't crushed. I was a weapon. Dario walked a half step behind me, carrying my backpack. He was invisible. I was the focus. We filed for an emergency ex-parte hearing. I was an officer of the court. My sister was official press. We were fast-tracked by 9:30. We were in Judge Helen Amora's chambers. She was a woman who looked like she hadn't smiled since 1990. She stared at me over her glasses. A lawyer from Landress, a slick man named Harrison, was already there, looking smug. They'd been tipped off by Bishop. "Miss Quintero," Judge Mora said, her voice like gravel. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you've dragged me out of a deposition for what my clerk calls state agency fraud. Landrise Partners has a valid eviction order." "No, Your Honor, they don't," I said, my voice ringing with a clarity I didn't know I possessed. "They have a piece of paper from the Urban Integrity Bureau, a bureau that, according to the Federal Register, does not exist. It has no agency code, no budget, and no jurisdiction. It is a ghost, a fraudulent entity created by Landrise Partners to circumvent state eviction moratoriums." Harrison scoffed. "Your Honor, that's absurd. The UIB is an interagency task force, a public-private partnership. Miss Quintero is just upset she's losing a standard eviction proceeding. Then what is this? Mr. Harrison." I stepped forward and placed the small, black USB copy on the judge's desk. Harrison's smug look faltered. He knew what it was. "That," I said, "is a copy of the UIB's internal records, recovered this morning from a Landress-leased warehouse. It contains the entire schedule to displace 47 buildings. But more importantly, Your Honor, it contains the original, time-stamped metadata for the fake digital seal they're using on their notices." I leaned in. "Metadata," I said, savoring the word, "that traces the seal's creation back to a single, private server, a server located in the basement of a bar on the east side, a bar called the Gray Lantern." I let the silence hang. Then I delivered the final blow. A bar which, according to Santa Aurelia County business filings, is owned by a holding company which is, in turn, 100% owned by Landrise Partners. The room was dead silent. Harrison was the color of old oatmeal. Judge Mora stared at the drive. She didn't look at me. She looked at Harrison. "I want to see what's on this drive," she said. "I object," Harrison yelped, jumping to his feet. This is stolen property. It's inadmissible. We have no idea where she got this. It's fruit of the poisonous tree." "It's evidence of an active, criminal conspiracy, Your Honor," I countered, my voice rising. "And I have reason to believe that, as we speak, the opposing party is actively destroying all corroborating evidence. I am requesting this court seal this drive, and I am formally petitioning for a full 14-day temporary restraining order on all UIB-related evictions, pending a full criminal investigation." Judge Mora held up a hand. "I'll take a 10-minute recess, then I'll issue my ruling." She swept out of the chamber. The second the door closed, Harrison was on his phone, his back to us, whispering furiously. Dario, Maya, and I stepped into the hallway. "You did it," Maya breathed, grabbing my arm. "Ariel, you nailed him." "It's not over," I said, my body still thrumming. "She has to grant the order." "She will." Dario was scanning the hallway. He was tense, his paralegal cover slipping, the sentinel returning. "She has no choice." "You gave her the legal cover and the criminal link. Maya's phone buzzed. Not a call, a text. We all looked at it. She pulled it out. Her face went white. She didn't say anything. She just showed the screen to Dario. "Parking level 4. Now, give us the original drive, or you lose your sister. You have 5 minutes." Dario's face turned to stone. He took the phone from her. "The phrasing," he whispered. his voice a venomous growl. "Lose your sister. It's not Harrison, it's not a lawyer, it's Bishop. He's here." I felt the blood drain from my face. They were in the building. "He doesn't know you have the original. Maya," I said, my mind racing, pushing the fear down. "He thinks I have it, or that the copy I gave the judge is the only one." "He's trying to flush us out," Dario said. "He knows we're all here. He wants to separate us." "Okay," I said, and the plan formed, sharp and clear. "Okay, they want the drive. We'll give them a choice." I grabbed Maya's arm. "You're going to the bank. Right now, the one across the street, you are putting that original drive in a safe deposit box. You don't talk to anyone. You go now. Ariel, I can't leave you." "Go," I commanded. "That's the insurance policy. It's the one thing they can't touch." She nodded, terrified, and sprinted for the elevators. I turned to Dario. "The copy, the one on my laptop. We're not just making one copy, we're making it public. I'm emailing the key files to my entire tenant association. We're printing them. We'll make it a Know Your Rights zine. We'll hand deliver it to all 47 buildings. The evidence won't be one flash drive. It'll be 1,000 pieces of paper. They can't burn it all. I'll have my team working on it in 10 minutes, he said. We started walking, fast, toward the main atrium, away from the judge's chambers. "Ma'am? Sir?" A voice. A man in a courthouse security uniform stepped in front of us, blocking our path. He was tall, thick, and not smiling. "Gonna need to see your badges. We've had a report of a disturbance." My hand went to my purse. For my bar card. Dario's hand shot out, not touching me but hovering, a shield. "Don't," he murmured, his voice so low only I could hear it. He was looking at the guard. "His badge is too high. The belt, it's non-regulation. It's weighted." The man was staring at me. "At my backpack," which Dario was holding. "I'll need to check that bag, sir," the guard said, his eyes flat. "It's Bishop." I breathed. "Look at his stance," Dario whispered. "His feet, that's a shooter's stance, not a guard's. He's braced to draw." Dario smiled, a wide, empty, paralegal smile. "Of course. Officer, we're just trying to catch up with our reporter." He pointed, loud and obnoxious, past Bishop's shoulder toward the elevators. "She's with Channel 4. We've got the ruling. We're live." Bishop flinched. He instinctively glanced over his shoulder. It was the only opening we needed. Dario grabbed my arm. "This way," he yelled, and he hauled me, hard left, into a different corridor, one that led to the main atrium. We didn't run. We walked, fast, blending with the crowd of lawyers and civilians. "He won't move," Dario said, his voice tight. "Not here. Too many witnesses. But he's burned. He knows we made him." We emerged into the main hall just as the doors to Judge Mora's chambers opened again. A clerk called my name. We walked back. Bishop was gone. Harrison was there, looking sick. We stood before the judge. "Miss Quintero," Judge Mora said, her voice final, "this court finds that your motion has significant merit. The specter of fraud on this scale, implicating a quasi-public entity, demands immediate action. I am hereby granting a 14-day temporary restraining order, effective immediately, halting any and all eviction proceedings, notices or actions by the entity known as the Urban Integrity Bureau, pending a full evidentiary hearing." She banged her gavel. The sound was a starting gun. The doors of the chamber opened. Maya was there, her camera on her shoulder, the red light on. She must have sprinted to the bank and back. She shoved the camera in Harrison's face as he stormed out. "Mr. Harrison, is it true Landry's is being investigated for criminal fraud? Is the UIB a ghost agency?" "No comment," he snarled. Pushing the camera away, Maya turned to me. I was just standing there, breathing. My knees were weak. "Ariel, can you confirm, did the judge just freeze all 47 evictions?" "Yes," I said, my voice shaking. Yes, the order is granted for 14 days. They're safe." The atrium erupted. Other reporters, catching the scent of blood, swarmed us. I was blinded by camera flashes, deafened by questions. I just stood there, trying to hold on to the victory. Across the hall, I saw him, Dario. He was standing half hidden behind a massive marble pillar. his paralegal disguise gone, the boss back in his eyes. He wasn't part of the media circus. He was in the shadows, where he lived. He watched me, his face unreadable. But his eyes, they were fixed on me, and I saw it. The thing I'd seen in the warehouse, the thing I'd felt in the mud. Pride. He gave me one. Sharp, acknowledging nod. Then, as if he'd never been there, he turned and melted into the crowd, disappearing toward the exit. That night, the victory felt cold. We were back at Calypso. The news was on every channel. My name and Maya's splashed across the screen. UIB and fraud scandal. Dario was across the room on his burner phone, his back to me. "What do you mean, gone?" he snarled. "Find her." He hung up, his whole body radiating a new, cold fury. He turned to me. "That was Aldo, from the port." "What is it?" I asked, my heart sinking. "It's Rhea, my lawyer, the one who drafted your ordinance." "The mole," I whispered. "I don't know," he said, his jaw tight. "But she's gone. She signed out a company car 2 hours ago. It's off the grid. No, wait." His other phone buzzed. He looked at it. "Aldo just got a ping. The transponder, it's been stationary for the last hour. Out by the old rail yard." He looked at me, his eyes black. "The Arcadia Glass Factory." The hunt was on again. The Arcadia Glass Factory wasn't just abandoned, it was dead. It stood in the middle of the old rail yard like a forgotten skeleton, a monument to a Santa Aurelia that no longer existed. A thick, cold fog rolled in from the nearby marsh, clinging to the ground, swallowing the first floor. The only light came from a single, flickering red neon sign on a building across the tracks, spelling bar. The red light bled through the fog and the factory's thousands of broken windows, making it look like the entire structure was weeping blood. "She's here," Dario said. His voice was a low growl, devoid of all emotion save a cold, sharp edge. He wasn't my partner. He wasn't my paralegal. He was the boss, and his property had been compromised. He was driving a different car, one I'd never seen. A nondescript, dark gray sedan that he'd pulled from a locked garage beneath the Calypso. It had no shine, no chrome. It was a tool. "Her car's there," he said, nodding. Rhea's company vehicle, a black SUV, was parked haphazardly in the shadows. Its nose pointed toward the factory's main entrance. "It's a trap." "You don't know that," I whispered, my hand on the door. "She could be in trouble. Bishop could have taken her." "He didn't," Dario said. "Bishop wouldn't be this sloppy. Leaving the car in the open, this is an invitation. She's waiting for us. I'm still going in." "I know." He killed the engine. The silence was absolute, heavy. "Stay behind me. Don't touch anything. And if I tell you to run, you don't ask why. You just go." "Do you understand me?" "Ariel, I understand." We moved like ghosts. We didn't go through the main entrance. Dario led me around the back to a rusted-out loading dock. He produced a set of heavy-duty bolt cutters from a bag in the trunk and snapped the ancient, corroded padlock with a single, muffled crunch. The door groaned open, a sound like a dying animal. We stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of rust, damp plaster, and something else, a sharp, coppery scent. The factory floor was a vast cavern of shadows. Moonlight filtered through the dirty, broken skylights, cut pale white stripes across the floor. Machines, huge and silent, loomed like sleeping iron giants. The only sound was the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the darkness, and the low, mournful ree of an old ventilation fan, spinning uselessly in the wind. "Dario," I whispered, my voice sounding tiny in the huge space. "Shh." He led me, not down the main aisle, but through the shadows, along the wall, using the dead machines as cover. He moved with a predator's silence. We found her in the old foreman's office, a glass-walled cube built on a raised platform in the center of the floor. It was the only place with light. A single, bare bulb hung from a wire, illuminating her, Rhea. She was sitting at a metal desk, perfectly still. She wasn't tied up. She wasn't hurt. She was just waiting. She wore a crisp, clean pantsuit. Her hair was perfect. In front of her was a single blue, leather-bound folder. She looked up as we approached, her face a mask of practiced calm. "Dario," she said, her voice cool. "I was wondering when you'd get here." Dario stopped at the doorway. He didn't enter, and he just blocked the light. "Ria, she's the mole." I breathed, my victory from the courthouse turning to ash in my mouth. "It's not that simple." "Ariel," Ria said, her eyes flicking to me. She looked tired. So incredibly tired. "You don't know what they have." Who has? Dario's voice was ice. "Bishop, the FCG, all of them," she said. She stood up. "The FCG came to me 6 months ago, before you were ever on their radar, Ariel. They knew about my past, a case, back in law school. I misplaced exculpatory evidence for a friend. It was expunged, sealed, but they found it. They had it all. They were going to have me disbarred, ruined. My entire life gone." She looked at Dario, pleading. "They offered me a deal, a legal arm. They called it feed them information on the Castillo operations, give them legal cover for their acquisitions. In exchange, a new identity, a clean slate, away from all of this. So you sold me out," Dario said. "I sold everyone out," she snapped, "and then she came along." Her gaze, sharp as broken glass, landed on me. "You with your morality, your promise to your mother. You weren't supposed to be this good. You were supposed to be a low-rent legal aid lawyer I could bury in paperwork. But you kept winning. You wouldn't stop." "Ria, stop," I said. "We can fix this. You can testify." "Testify?" She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "It's too late for that. The storm is here. Bishop he's not like them. He's not about money. He's about order. He wants this city clean, and you and Dario, you're in the way." She tapped the blue folder. "But I made you a deal. Ariel, a better one. A reconciliation agreement between Landry's and the Marigold tenants. Full amnesty for all 47 buildings. They'll drop the evictions. Permanently." My heart, it wanted to leap. "What?" "Read it," she said, pushing the folder across the desk. "It's all there. You win. They get to walk away. You get to be the hero. All you have to do is sign." I stepped forward. Dario's hand shot out, grabbing my arm. "Don't. It's a trap," he growled, his eyes never leaving Ria. "I have to read it," I whispered. I pulled my arm free. I walked to the desk. My hands were shaking. I opened the folder. It was a standard settlement. Whereas, hereby, in perpetuity. It all looked real. I flipped past the first page, the second, and there it was. Page 3, buried in a subclause. "And the tenants hereby agree to recognize the Urban Integrity Bureau as the sole, legitimate, and binding authority for all future municipal-private partnerships." My blood ran cold. "It's not a settlement," I said, my voice hollow. "It's a surrender. This legalizes them. It validates the fake agency. It nullifies my entire victory. It sets a precedent for the next 47 buildings. It saves your clients," Ria said, her voice hard. "Take the win. Ariel, go home. Be a hero." "No." I slammed the folder shut. "Wrong answer." The voice came from the shadows behind Ria. The factory lights. Dozens of them flashed on, blinding us, turning the factory floor from a cavern of shadows into a stark, overlit stage. Bishop stepped out. He was in his simple security uniform. The one from the courthouse. He wasn't smiling. He was flanked by 4 rooks, all in black, all holding weapons. They had us. "I was hoping you'd be smart, Ariel," Bishop said, his voice calm, disappointed. "I really was." "Bishop," Dario said. His body had shifted. He was no longer a man. He was a predator, coiled, assessing. "You were my man." "I was." Bishop agreed, "until I saw what a mess you were making. This city, it needs cleansing. The FCG provides that. You're just old world sentiment. You're in the way." "And you," I spat, "you're a fascist, hiding behind a fake government seal." Bishop sighed. "Ria, you tried. Get out of the way." Dario moved. He didn't charge. He didn't speak. He grabbed my arm and shoved me, hard, out of the glass office, toward the solid steel base of a massive, dead furnace. "Hug the wall," he roared. "Don't move." It wasn't a firefight, it was an execution, a flash of movement. Dario had a weapon. From where? I didn't know. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Not a boom, but a sharp, cracking pop, pop, pop. But he wasn't shooting at them. The first shot hit the main junction box on the wall. The factory lights, the ones Bishop had just turned on, exploded in a shower of sparks. We were plunged back into the strobing. Bloody light of the bar sign. Chaos. "Spread out, find them," Bishop roared. Ping Dario's next shot. It hit a high-voltage conduit. A massive, blue-white arc of electricity flashed, blinding us all, showering the floor in sparks. The rooks were firing blind, their shots thudding into the metal machinery around us. Thwack, thwack! "This way," Dario grabbed me, pulling me along the wall, using the shadows. A rook stepped around a pillar. We were face to face. Dario didn't shoot him. He slammed his shoulder into the man, a pure, brutal tackle. And we were past him. "We're pinned," Dario growled. Two rooks were on a catwalk above us, their flashlights cutting beams through the misty air. I looked around, frantic. My eyes landed on a workbench. Cans, dozens of cans of paint, primer, thinner. The glass factory's old maintenance stock. I didn't think. I grabbed a can. "Azure blue." "The furnace," I yelled. The old furnace we were hiding behind it was still warm. The pilot light. The gas was still on. Dario understood. He fired, once, pop, at the catwalk. The rooks ducked. In that second, I yanked the pilot light cover open. I saw the small, steady blue flame. I threw the can of paint, underhand, hard, into the open forge. "Cover!" Dario screamed, pulling me behind the steel. The can exploded. Not a bomb. A whoosh. A massive, thick, impenetrable cloud of bright blue smoke erupted from the furnace, instantly filling the entire center of the factory. It was like a dye pack, a smoke screen from hell. "Go, go, go!" We ran, blind, choking on the acrid blue fog. We stumbled over debris, our hands outstretched. "The stairs," Dario yelled. "To the bridge." We found them. A metal staircase, ringing under our feet. We climbed, bursting out of the blue smoke, onto a high, narrow catwalk. It was a bridge, spanning the entire factory floor. Its floor panels made of thick, wire-meshed glass. We were halfway across. End of the line. Castillo. Bishop. He was at the other end of the bridge, blocking our exit. He wasn't pointing a weapon, he was just waiting. Below us, his rooks were choking in the blue haze. "Throw her over," Bishop said, his voice calm, reasonable. "Just drop her. A tragic accident, I give you my word. I'll give your family a pass. You can have the docks. We'll just renegotiate." Dario stopped. He was breathing hard. He was standing in front of me. A shield. "She's not a bargaining chip," he panted, his voice a low, lethal growl. "Then you both go." Bishop raised his hand. Not a weapon, but a small, black detonator. "No." The voice was from behind us. Rhea. She had followed us up the stairs, out of the smoke. Her perfect pantsuit was stained blue. Her face was a mask of terror, but she was holding the blue, leather-bound folder. Her hands were shaking so badly, the pages were rattling. I saw it then. She wasn't a villain. She was just like me. She was trapped. "Rhea," I yelled. "It's not too late. Choose real law, or fake law choose." She looked at me. She looked at Bishop. She looked at the folder in her hand, and she chose. She didn't run. She didn't fight. She acted. "The gray lantern," she screamed. She threw something, not the folder, but a small plastic card, a key card. It skittered across the glass bridge, stopping at my feet. "It's the root server." "The master password is on the back, go," Bishop snarled. It was the first time I'd seen him lose his composure. He lunged, not at us, but at her. "You stupid," he pressed the button. Crack. It wasn't a bomb. It was a cutter charge. A sharp, precise explosion on the steel support under the bridge, right where Rhea was standing. The glass beneath her feet didn't just break. It vanished. She was just gone. No scream. Just gone. And the bridge was collapsing. A huge 10-foot section where Rhea had been was just empty space, and the break was coming our way. The whole structure was groaning, tearing apart. I didn't have time to scream. "Dario." He spun. Saw the glass panels tilting, shattering. He didn't try to outrun it. He grabbed me. "Hold on." His arm, a steel cable, locked around my waist. He didn't run. He jumped. He pulled me tight, his body twisting, putting himself between me and the floor, and we fell. It wasn't a long fall, maybe 15 feet. But it felt like forever. We hit hard. We landed on a massive pile of old fire-retardant insulation, thick bales of it left for a renovation that never happened. It was a soft landing, but it still punched the air from my body. We rolled, tumbling, a tangle of limbs and mud and blue soot. I ended up on my back, Dario half on top of me, the same way we'd been in the swamp, in the mud. He was a dead weight, his body shielding mine. Above us, a shower of red and orange sparks from the severed electrical cables rained down, drifting through the blue smoke like dying stars. The factory was filled with the groans of dying metal. Dario pushed up, his arms shaking with the effort. His face was inches from mine, smeared with soot, streaked with blue paint. He was breathing. Harsh, ragged gasps. We just stared. His eyes, they weren't the boss's. They weren't the paralegals. They were just his. And they were terrified. And they were focused entirely, completely on me. The world was ending around us. The building was coming down. Bishop was still up there. And none of it mattered. I saw it in his eyes, the same thing he was seeing in mine. It wasn't just a truce. It wasn't just a debt. It wasn't just an alliance. This was it. The love I hadn't let myself name it was there. And it was all that was left. We ran. We didn't look back. We didn't wait to see if Bishop or his rooks were coming. We scrambled out of the insulation, through the blue-black haze, and burst out of the factory's broken loading dock, disappearing into the cold, foggy night. Dario's gray sedan was where we left it. We piled in, the smell of acrid smoke, soot, and burnt paint filling the small space. He drove, his hands white on the steering wheel. He didn't speak. I just sat there, my entire body one giant, screaming bruise. I was covered in glass dust. It was in my hair, on my skin, and it glittered in the dashboard lights. Rhea was gone. She had chosen me. She had chosen the law, and Bishop had erased her for it. I held the key card she'd thrown. It was a simple, white plastic card, just like the one Frank the foreman had used, but on the back, in Rhea's neat, precise handwriting, was a string of 16 alphanumeric characters. The master password. She had died to give me this. The drive back to Calypso was a blur of silence and streetlights. When the heavy metal door of the warehouse rolled shut behind us, sealing us in, it was the first time I'd breathed in an hour. Dario killed the engine. We just sat there, in the dark, in the quiet. For a full minute, the only sound was the tink-tink-tink of the cooling engine. "Ariel," he said. His voice was a rasp, raw from the smoke. "I know," I whispered. We got out of the car. The warehouse was just as we'd left it. The vast, cavernous space was dark, the huge canvases on the wall just looming shadows. But he had left a single string of yellow, festive-looking cafe lights on, the ones that snaked around the beams in the small lounge area. They cast a warm, golden, insufficient glow. We stood in that pool of light, just looking at each other. We were a nightmare. My borrowed blazer was ripped at the shoulder. My face was streaked with blue paint and black soot. Dario's dark shirt was plastered to his chest, wet with God knows what, and there was a long, bleeding gash on his forearm where a piece of glass had tagged him. He looked at the cut, then at me. You're covered in—" He reached out, his fingers hesitant, and brushed my cheek. His thumb came away black. "So are you," I whispered. "We needed to clean up. We needed to plan. We needed to—" The weight of the night of the last 24 hours came crashing down. My knees buckled. The key card fell from my numb fingers. Dario caught me. He didn't just grab my arm. He moved, his arms encircling me, pulling me against his chest as my legs gave out. I was holding him up. He was holding me up. "I've got you," he murmured into my hair. "I've got you." "She's dead, Dario," I choked out, the sob ripping from my chest. She saved us, and he— "I know," he said, his voice thick. "I know." He held me for a long time, just letting me shake. He was a solid, warm wall in the middle of my collapsing world. Finally, he pulled back. "You're freezing and you're covered in glass. We have to clean up." He pointed to a tall, wooden privacy screen in the corner, the kind artists use. There's a bathroom back there. Shower, I keep spare clothes, t-shirts, sweatpants. They'll be too big, but they're clean." He went to a duffel bag under the desk, pulled out a gray t-shirt and a pair of black sweatpants, and handed them to me. "Go," he said. "I'll clean this." He gestured to his arm. I went behind the screen. The hot water was a shock, a miracle. I watched the water circle the drain, turning gray, then blue, then black. I scrubbed my skin until it was raw, trying to wash off the factory, the fear, the smell of the fire. When I stepped out, wrapped in a towel, Dario was gone. I put on the clothes. The sweatpants were huge. I had to roll the waistband twice. The t-shirt hung down to my knees, but it was soft, clean and warm. It smelled like him, cedar and soap. I stepped out from behind the screen. He was standing by the window, his back to me. He had also changed. He was in a clean black t-shirt, his hair wet, slicked back. The gash on his arm was gone, covered by a neat white bandage. He heard me. He turned. He just looked at me. His eyes roamed my face, my hair, my body swimming in his clothes. The air was thick, humming with everything we weren't saying. "Ariel," he started, his voice a low rasp. "What happened back there? When we fell, he was asking for permission after everything. After the bridge, after the fire, after the kiss in the mud. He was still asking." I walked toward him. I didn't stop until I was standing right in front of him. I put one finger on his lips. "Shh," I whispered. Don't talk." I didn't need to ask. I knew. He knew. I rose up on my toes. I put my hands on his shoulders, and I kissed him. He was so still for a second. A man carved from marble, shocked into silence. Then he responded. His hands came up, gentle, hesitant, and framed my face. His thumbs, slightly rough, brushed my cheekbones. The kiss wasn't like the one in the swamp, not desperate or frantic. This was slow. It was deep. It was a conversation. It was, "I thought I'd lost you, and you're here, and you're safe." His lips were soft, warm, and sure. His hands moved from my face, one sliding around my waist, pulling me flush against him. The other hand, his other hand, moved into my still damp hair, tangling in it. His fingers spreading, tilting my head back. I sank into him. My shoulder blades pressed against the wall, his body caging me in. But it wasn't a cage, it was a harbor. I pulled back, just enough to breathe. I didn't open my eyes. I just rested my forehead against his, on the faint scar above his eyebrow. "I don't need you to save me, Dario," I whispered. The words coming from someplace deep inside me I didn't know existed. I was drowning when you found me, but I'm not anymore. I don't need a savior." I opened my eyes. He was watching me, his gaze so intense it stole my breath. "I need you to stand next to me," I said. His expression had cracked, the mask of the boss, the ice, the control it just shattered. "I'm here. Ariel," he whispered, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. "I'm not going anywhere." He kissed me again, and this time, there was no hesitation. It was a flood, a lifetime of control, unleashed. He pulled me away from the wall, his arm locked around my waist and half led, half fell with me onto the long, worn leather sofa. We landed in a heap, me half sprawled across his chest. He rolled, shifting, until we were side by side, a tangle of limbs in the soft, worn leather. My t-shirt had ridden up. His hand, warm and strong, rested on the bare skin of my hip. It wasn't a caress. It was just an anchor, a connection. He held me. I put my head on his chest, right over his heart, and I just listened. Thump, 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 thump. The steadiest sound in the world. My own frantic heartbeat began to slow, to match his. His hand stroked my hair, over and over, a slow, rhythmic, calming motion. My hand came up to rest on his chest, my fingers spreading over the solid muscle. He was real. He was warm. We were alive. I felt his lips, a feather-light press, on the top of my head. "I thought," he started, his voice a rumble beneath my ear, "when Bishop hit the button. When I saw the bridge go, I thought I was too late." "You weren't," I murmured. my voice muffled by his shirt. "You jumped. You threw the paint." A small, shaky laugh escaped him. It was a beautiful, broken sound. We're a hell of a team, aren't we?" "Yeah," I whispered, a smile touching my lips for the first time. "We are." The rain started again, a gentle, steady drumming on the high warehouse roof. It was a counter-rhythm to the beat of his heart. We lay there, in the golden light, just breathing. My body ached, my mind was screaming, but in this one, perfect, impossible moment, I was just held. My eyes grew heavy. The exhaustion was a physical weight. I just let my body sink into his, into the soft leather, into the sound of his heart in the rain. I was safe. I don't know how long we lay there. An hour, maybe 2. When I opened my eyes, the light was the same. He hadn't moved. His arm was still around me, his hand still in my hair. He was watching me. "Hi," I whispered. "Hi," he rumbled. The spell was broken. The world came rushing back. "Rhea," I said, sitting up. The t-shirt fell to my thighs. "The key card, the gray lantern." Dario sat up, swinging his legs to the floor. All business again, but he didn't let go of me. He just grabbed my hand, his fingers lacing with mine. "The server, it's the master copy. It's not just the UIB, it's everything, the FCG, the money laundering, the city contracts, it's Bishop's entire operation." "Bishop doesn't know we have it," I said, my mind racing. "He thinks Rhea is dead, and the card is buried in the rubble. Which gives us maybe 12 hours, Dario finished, before he realizes we're not in that factory, before he realizes the card is gone." We were whispering now, plotting. Exhausted, huddled on the sofa, our hands locked together. "The Aurelius Hotel," I said, the name clicking. "I saw it on the news. Landry's is having a gala. Tomorrow night, they're signing the new city revitalization contract. It's a media event. It's the FCG. It's the next phase. They're signing it in public," Dario said. A slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "In front of the press. So we give the press something better to look at," I said, the plan forming, sharp and bright. "Rhea's password, the gray lantern server." "My tech team," Dario said, his thumb rubbing the back of my hand. "They're the best. They can use that password to access the server. They can break the FCG's firewalls. They can download everything." "And I said, "will have the class action lawsuit ready. Not just an injunction, the real thing. Racketeering, conspiracy, fraud. I'll name Landress. I'll name the FCG. I'll name Bishop." "We'll time it," he said, his eyes bright. The exact moment Harrison, the CEO of Landry's, steps up to the podium to sign, my team hits send. The files go to every news desk in this city, every blogger, every federal agency, and you walk in. I serve him the lawsuit right at the podium. I breathed. "It's a kill shot," he said. "It's the law." We were both smiling. It was the end. I looked at him, my smile fading. "Dario, when I file your name, the Castillo family, you've been on the edge of all of this, the docs, the money." "I know," he said, his face serious. "Keep your name out of it," I said. "This has to be clean. The case, it has to be me. The law, no ghosts, no shadows." He looked at our joined hands. "We keep each other safe," he said, his voice low. "Our own way. My name stays clean for you, and your case, it stays clean. For everyone else." He squeezed my hand. "It's a deal." Bzzz-it. Bzzz-it. The sound was an intrusion, a violation, the burner phone, the one on the desk, 10 feet away. We both froze. A new text message had lit up the screen. Dario let go of my hand, stood, and walked over to it. He read it. His entire body went rigid. "What?" I said, standing up. "Dario, what is it?" He didn't speak. He just turned the phone so I could see the screen. One line of text, from an unknown number. "Tomorrow, 9 p.m. The Aurelius Hotel. Come alone." The grand ballroom of the Aurelius Hotel was a monument to denial. It was all gold leaf, soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers that dripped light onto a sea of expensive, smiling faces. They were toasting their own victory. The air thick with the smell of champagne and self-congratulation. I saw them. Harrison, the CEO of Landrice, looking smug in a perfect tuxedo. The men with the FCG lapel pins, laughing too loudly, their faces flushed. They were celebrating a contract that would make them millions and displace thousands. The media was, as predicted, kept outside. A velvet rope in the lobby held back a small, frustrated gaggle of reporters. Maya was among them, her camera on her shoulder, her face a mask of professional patience. She was waiting. I walked past the rope. My name was on the list. Ariel Quintero, Esquire, counsel for the Marigold Arms Tenant Association. I was here to observe the signing. I wore my one good black suit, the blazer Maya had lent me, my hair pulled back in a severe bun. I carried a heavy, worn leather briefcase. I was the picture of a defeated, low-rent lawyer, here to witness the final nail in her coffin. I stepped inside. The warmth and noise hit me like a wave. I scanned the room. Dario was already there. Him, and 3 of his team. Aldo, the port manager, and 2 others I didn't know. They were all dressed in black polo shirts with the Aurelius AV logo embroidered on the chest. They were invisible. They were checking microphones, adjusting cables on the huge LED screen that served as the stage's backdrop. Dario was at the main soundboard, his back to the room. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. I could feel him, a point of calm, coiled energy in the center of the chaos. I scanned the upper level, the mezzanine, and I saw him, Bishop. He wasn't in uniform. He wore a crisp, black waiter's tuxedo. He was holding a silver tray, but he wasn't serving drinks. His eyes, cold and assessing, were sweeping the crowd. He wasn't looking for me. He was looking for Dario. He was hunting for the boss, expecting a dramatic entrance, a last-minute, violent play. He never even glanced at the tech guy hunched over the soundboard. I took my position against the far wall. I was just another shadow. I checked my watch. 8:57 p.m. At 8:58, Harrison stepped up to the podium, his face beaming. The crowd applauded. Behind him, the massive screen showed the interlocking logos of Landrice Partners and the fraudulent Federal Commerce Guard. Thank you, he said, spreading his arms. Tonight, we don't just sign a contract. We sign a new future for Santa Aurelia. A partnership in prosperity. A cleaner, stronger, more integrated. He never finished the word. It was 8:59 p.m. The screen behind him flickered. Harrison paused, annoyed. The logos vanished, replaced by a black screen. Then, by Maya's face. We interrupt this celebration. Her voice boomed, sharp and clear over the hotel's perfect sound system. For a special report on the future of Santa Aurelia. Harrison's face went white. What is this? Turn it off. Turn that off. Maya's face was replaced by the documents, the forged UIB seal, the metadata from the Gray Lantern server, the map of all 47 buildings, a long lens, grainy photo of the rooks at the Blue Bayou. Just before the fire, the room exploded. It's a sham, someone yelled. Fraud, I saw the man with the silver beard, the lead FCG official, rip the pin from his lapel. He wasn't a politician, and he was an actor, and he was running for the kitchen exit. Shut it down, Bishop roared. The screen dissolved into static, a high-pitched, painful squeal filling the ballroom. Bishop was on the mezzanine, at a secondary control panel, jamming the signal. He was furious, his cover blown, and Dario was moving. He ripped off the AV polo shirt, tossing it aside. He was in his black t-shirt, the ink on his arms stark in the chaotic, flashing lights. He didn't take the stairs. He grabbed a piece of decorative trellis, swung himself up, and was on the lighting rig, a web of steel and cables that ran directly to the mezzanine. He moved with a silent, terrifying grace. Bishop looked up. He saw him. The 2 predators, finally unmasked, while every eye in the room was on the static screen or the man climbing the scaffolding. I moved. I walked out of the shadow. I walked up the side steps to the stage. Harrison was still there, purple-faced, smashing his fist on the podium. I walked right up to the microphone. The squeal of static stopped. Dario's team, at the main board, had cut Bishop's feed. My tap on the mic was a cannon shot in the sudden silence. Thump, thump, the entire ballroom turned to look at me. "Mr. Harrison," I said. My voice was calm. It was cold. It didn't shake. "My name is Ariel Quintero. I'm an attorney with the El Camino Community Legal Center." I reached into my briefcase. I pulled out the lawsuit, 200 pages of pure legal fact. And on behalf of the 75 families of the Marigold Arms and the residents of 47 other buildings your companies are illegally attempting to displace, you are being served. I held up the document. This is a class action lawsuit filed 1 hour ago in Santa Aurelia Superior Court. It alleges conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and violation of the Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act. Behind me, the static-filled screen flickered back to life. Dario's team. But it wasn't Maya's video. It was just words. White text on a black background. 18 U.S. Code Section 1962. RICO Act Cal. Penal Code Section 484. Theft Cal. Penal Code Section 182. Criminal conspiracy. I was reading the law, and behind me, the law was becoming a weapon. Projected like bullets. "You built a house of cards, Mr. Harrison," I said, "and you used a ghost to do it." Above me, I heard a crash, a grunt. Dario and Bishop. They were on the narrow catwalk, a fight of shadows. Bishop was a brawler, all force. He lunged. Dario was a current. He flowed, redirecting, blocking, using Bishop's own rage against him. Sparks flew as a steel lighting fixture was knocked loose. The ballroom doors burst open. Not rooks. Uniformed Santa Aurelia police officers, real cops, and at their lead, Maya. She held up a single, white plastic card, Ria's card. "He's right," she yelled at the officers, pointing at me. "The entire server, all the evidence, it's all real. We have the root password, we have it all." Bishop saw it. He was done. Trapped. Cops below, Dario in front, he snarled, a low, animal sound. He looked down, at the stage. At me. He pulled the knife, the one from the factory, long and thin. He wasn't going to be taken. He was going to take me with him. He lunged not at Dario. He vaulted over the railing, a 15-foot drop, aiming for the stage, aiming for me. Dario was faster. He launched himself off the railing, tackling Bishop in midair. They hit the stage, a brutal, crashing impact that sent my briefcase skittering. The knife flew from Bishop's hand. Dario didn't hesitate. He didn't hit him. He grabbed a thick black microphone cable from the floor, looped it, spun, and in one clean, brutal, practiced motion, had Bishop's hands bound behind his back. It was over. The cops swarmed the stage. Harrison was frozen. His mouth open, they put him in cuffs. They hauled Bishop, who was spitting and cursing, to his feet. My phone buzzed. My hand was shaking as I answered it. "This is Judge Mora, Miss Quintero. I've just seen the feed from your sister and the emergency filing from the district attorney. I am signing the permanent injunction, effective immediately. Furthermore, I am signing an order to freeze any and all assets tied to Landrise Partners, the Federal Commerce Guard, and the Gray Lantern Bar. You did it, counselor. You won." I hung up. The ballroom was a sea of flashing blue and red lights. Dario stepped down from the stage. He was breathing hard, a cut on his cheek. He ignored the police, ignored the cameras. He walked over to where my black blazer had fallen, picking it up. He walked over to me. He stood there for a moment, the ink on his arms dark in the police lights. He draped the blazer over my shoulders. A small, real, actual smile touched his lips. "My coat looked better on you," he said, his voice a low rumble. "But I think your blazer, it suits me more." I was outside. The air was cold, clean. The tenants were there. Dozens of them, misses, crews. They were crying, cheering, hugging me, hugging each other. Maya ran to me and I held her, my face buried in her shoulder. It was over. We were safe. I looked up, across the street, in the shadow of an alcove. He was standing. Dario. Leaning against his car, arms crossed. He was letting me have this. He was letting me have the light. I gently pulled away from the celebration. I walked across the street, away from the cameras. He just watched me approach. I'm not I said, my voice quiet. "Mistaking you for the delivery guy anymore." He pushed off the wall, that ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "That's a shame," he said, his voice soft. "I can still bring you dinner." The El Camino Community Legal Center didn't look like much, but the sign was new. It hung above the door, painted in clear letters, the Quintero Castillo Community Justice Fund. Below it, in smaller text, transparency, advocacy, justice, no fake seals allowed. I stood at the door, holding my briefcase. He walked up behind me, and he didn't touch me. Not at first. "Ready, counselor?" he asked. I turned, a real smile on my face. I took his hand. "Ready, boss," I said. He leaned in, and his kiss was soft, and it was real, and it was a promise. We walked inside, together. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm so curious. Where in the world are you listening from? Let me know in the comments so we can connect and share our thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to my channel, Mafia Boss Stories, like this video, and give it a real boost by hitting that hype button. It helps more than you know and gets these stories out to a wider audience.